What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode 64 of the Silver and Gold. I'm Josh.
And I'm Mike.
And, I'd say things are going a little bit better right now for Raider fans than it is for 49er fans. We'll start there. The 49ers on Thursday Night Football had an abysmal performance against the Rams. They failed. Honestly, both teams really did not play that well. The game really started off with Matthew Stafford, trying to throw interceptions to the 49ers, even hitting Hufanga in the chest on a pass that should have been intercepted. But poor Hufanga's got the club on his hand, so he couldn't even catch the ball,
It just bounced right off him.
I have seen players, with a club on their hand make interceptions before, but I honestly understand. I don't think I could do it too. But yeah, the final score was 12-6, and the 49ers even got outscored this week by the Raiders, And one thing I don't understand is that the 49ers are going to be one of the last teams to ever get a brand new stadium that's going to be an outdoor stadium, and yet they play horribly every single time in the rain. This isn't even just a Brock Purdy thing, people. All right, Brock Purdy, yes, he plays poorly in the rain, but literally the 49ers have played horribly under Kyle Shanahan in the rain. And he refuses. They've asked him about it in press conferences, about do they prepare differently for rain? And, he has said, no, he doesn't prepare differently. He doesn't put water on the balls. He doesn't believe in that. And to me, it's just how many times do you have to play bad in the rain before you do something different? Come on. Okay. So Now the 2024 season, that was the game, that was the most important game of the year. And now this season, it's a less than 1% chance that the 49ers can, make the playoffs now. So, it's unofficially over for the 49ers this year. And it's unofficially over for Deebo Samuel. He literally put the target on his back this week by saying, I'm not struggling. I'm just not getting targets, or I'm not getting the ball. And then he goes into this game and, I'll pull up his stats, but there's one play in the game where the 49ers probably should have scored a touchdown. And, it just bounces off his chest, off his hands, and it's I like Deebo, but as this season has gone on, he is this season one of my least favorite players on the team. Just really, it all started with the whole Tabor Pepper thing. And then also, I think I mentioned during draft, once the 49ers drafted Pearsall, I think I had a reaction where I was like, if they can keep Ayuk and Pearsall and trade Deebo, I would be ecstatic. And that's just because I didn't think that there was a need for having a player like Deebo Samuel after they traded for McCaffrey and now that you added another receiver. But the regression has just been crazy. And it honestly, I don't know, Mike, maybe we'll kind of talk more about it when we start talking about like the Brock Purdy contract rumors. But do you think that it is a pattern? Do you think that it has more to do with the individual players themselves? Because Ayuk did not have a strong training camp, going into the season. And, Deebo Samuel seemed to have a solid training camp going in, Ricky Pearsall hasn't been a huge factor. Really, the only pass catchers for the 49ers who have really made an impact have been Juwan Jennings and George Kittle. Do you think that there is anything to be said about the correlation between the receiver struggles and Brock Purdy? Because that's 3 of their top receivers,
Right.
Ayuk obviously with the injury, but yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of where my head goes, is like it feels like, all right, the top receiver, Ayuk, got injured pretty early on this year. Kittle has been a monster this season. He's back to, I'd say, his old self. Like, he's playing like he's in his prime still, which he is.
Yeah.
And then Pearsall, I would say the struggles for him dates back to not being able to really practice much in training camp.
Yeah. Being banged up and then getting shot.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
Yeah.
So he had a shortened preseason, really. So it was going to be a slow ramp up for him regardless. And I mean, he hasn't been all too impressive, but he's a rookie. Like, he can still figure that out. And then I just think with Deebo, he just looks like a guy that's washed. Like, I don't think I can blame Purdy for him. I don't even think I could blame Shanahan for him. Like, Deebo kind of tried to blame one of the two, if not both of them, for not feeding him more. And then what happens? He goes out there and he's dropping all the passes and just looks cooked,
Well, like, I can blame Shanahan in terms of this. Deebo clearly has not been playing up to his standard. And, essentially the same mistake that they made in the Super Bowl was the same mistake that they made against the Rams. They were trying to feature Deebo a little bit too much. And you know what's insane to me? All right, so like the Rams with, the Rams went to Cooper Kupp like 3 times on like the first drive or 2. And then after that, they got away from him the whole rest of the game. All right, Cooper Kupp, it's not working going there. So they went somewhere else, And then the Rams decided to run the ball a lot more. They were pretty balanced, I would say. I might be getting the exact numbers wrong, because it's been a couple days now. But I remember hearing it was like 34 rushes and 31 passes that the Rams had. And then the 49ers had, significantly more passes than they did rushes, And so maybe that has to do with, Deebo Samuel being inefficient and Isaac Guerrero, also playing on that, he's got like a foot sprain and maybe they didn't want to push it there. But Shanahan is notorious for being the coach that will like run running backs into the ground. He has like a different leading rusher. If you look back at every single season on the 49ers, there's a different guy almost every season who has the most rushing yards on the team, and that's true this year too, because this year, it's probably Jordan Mason. Jordan Mason probably has the most rushing yards on the team this year because McCaffrey didn't play for most of the year. Last year was McCaffrey. The year before might have been McCaffrey, but it could have been that it was Elijah Mitchell, or even who did they trade to Miami? Jeff Wilson Jr. They still had Jeff Wilson Jr. on the team. So yeah, but that's a whole nother rabbit hole. The Niners did not come to play against the Rams. Brock Purdy was 14 of 31, 142 yards and an interception. The interception was not good. It was, there was a rusher, pass rusher coming right for Purdy, and Purdy just kind of tosses it up, in the end zone for Juwan Jennings. And it was like 2nd and 11. They're driving down the field. They only need a field goal to tie the game. I know you don't want to put the ball into Jake Moody's hands in order to win the game, or else Debo might find himself saying more stuff and putting his hands on Tabor Pepper again. But yeah, man, I don't know. It's I mean, Purdy's still technically young, but I think that's probably a play that he would want back, and I hope that he'll learn from going forward. I think he will learn from it because, he actually takes things seriously, unlike Jimmy Garoppolo did. Jimmy never learned. Jimmy would make the same mistakes over and over and would never learn. But I don't know. I get a different work ethic vibe from Brock Purdy. But, I mean, I could be wrong, but I feel very strongly about that. But in terms of rushing in this game, Isaac Guerrero had 16 carries for 57 yards, which is not ideal. The 49ers could not really run the ball effectively in this game, but they didn't necessarily commit to it like they should have in a rain game where you're struggling. You're struggling to pass. Like, Purdy completed less than half of his throws. So really, it was just a poor performance all around. Deebo Samuel had 2 carries for 3 yards. I'm really glad that he, went to Twitter with his frustrations. And let's see. What's really funny about that though, is that, all right, he ended up deleting the tweet, but he didn't delete it in time for like the community notes to like say, yeah, Deebo actually is struggling. He leads the team in drops. I've never seen that before.
That was,
what I mean?
That's crazy. Yeah.
I've never, ever seen any player get community noted when calling out their team on social media in any sport. So, yeah, so that was fun. Unlike the game, but
no touchdown scored. The Niners defense was doing good at least. Especially the first half, like they shut everything down. It's just the offense couldn't get it going.
We haven't even touched on like the big headline from the game,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I almost forgot about it. But
yeah,
so Kittle had another great game. He had 4 receptions for 61 yards. It's 15.2 yards per catch. I don't know why he and Jennings are not getting the ball more. They're literally every single time you throw it, or every single time you connect with Kittle and Jennings on a pass. Jennings had 2 catches, 31 yards, so 15.5. Jennings did have a drop in the game, I remember. But I mean, still, Jennings and Kittle are your only 2 good receivers this year. Everyone else is not helping. Guerrero was involved in the passing game a little bit. He had 4 receptions, 18 yards. Deebo, like I think I mentioned already, 3 catches, 16 yards. And Pearsall, 1 catch for 16. And Pearsall had this was another bad throw by Purdy. And this is really like one of my big complaints about Brock Purdy is that I just don't know if he has the arm strength to really, fit the ball into, all right, if this opening is only going to be open for a split second and you really need to thread the needle, I just don't know if Brock Purdy can really thread the needle consistently down the field. Whereas a quarterback like Justin Herbert can do, like Patrick Mahomes, can do, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen consistently does. Ricky Pearsall is like practically wide open, and Purdy throws a lob pass over the top, and it sails over to the left. Where if he just throws it more over the middle and leads Pearsall into it, it's a touchdown probably, or at least a big gain at very least. But yeah, I mean, that's just something that I've noticed, and I think other fans have noticed. Like Pia's dad and I talk about it all the time, where it's like, why isn't, we just don't know if he can throw those bullet passes down the field. We haven't seen it really. Purdy can throw deep. In my opinion, he can throw deep, and he's actually pretty accurate. But like they're almost always floaters,
Mhm.
So luckily, I mean, for a guy who throws the ball, you know, for a guy who throws so many like lob passes and touch passes rather than, really zipping it, I think he gets intercepted a lot less than a quarterback who normally, doesn't have the arm strength to compensate for it would. Like Purdy doesn't, I think, get intercepted as much as I would expect for for a quarterback like that. And I think that's a testament to how smart he is and how he's able to throw with anticipation. But like Mike mentioned earlier, the defense really stepped up in this game. And Dre Greenlaw returned from his Achilles injury, and he was great.
He looked great. He was stopping the run, like especially in the first half, dude. Every time I have Kyron Williams on my fantasy team, so every time I would see him hit the hole, I'd be like, "Oh my god!" And then boom, 57, just tackles him. I'm like, bro, all right. Like I couldn't even be mad. I was like, that's cool for Dre Greenlaw. Like the fact that he's back less than a year after rupturing his Achilles, he looked good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it was crazy. And I mean, I think I heard it from Grant, on his stream, I mean, it was one of the more impressive performances after, post Achilles for an athlete, but he's, Grant said that he saw Dre Greenlaw after the game, like, barely able to walk, like just kind of like limping. And Dre Greenlaw did eventually, I think, get hurt in this game and he needed to come out. And they asked another player to come in his place, in Devondre Campbell, and Devondre Campbell said, "No, nah, I'm good." And then so I guess John Lynch came down to the field, and this is how Jay Glazer put it: was John Lynch came down to the field and sent Campbell to the locker room.
Huh.
And I guess the way they described it on Fox Sports was like, yeah, you always want to be talking to John Lynch, not 47 Red, like the safety, John Lynch.
Oh yeah, yes,
yeah,
yes.
Because they're like, John. Yeah, that's two different people. So
yeah,
I mean, I didn't see it happen, but the way they described it, like, good for John Lynch, like, to kick Campbell off the sideline, because I mean, the way the players were talking about it after the game, Charvarius Ward was very upset about it. George Kittle was very disappointed, and really, how tone deaf can you be? Like, I mean, if you watch other people talk about it, like, I mean, this has been one of the big talking points, even in national media. Like, they've been talking about it on First Take, and they even had an update about it on First Take today, about Campbell being suspended, which I'm glad that they did.
That's the
I'm
right
very
move.
glad that yep.
Yes.
Because it seemed like they were going to outright cut him from the team, but I'm glad that they suspended him instead, because if they cut him from the team, he would be getting the rest of, like, his game checks for the rest of the year, or the rest of his contract, and he would be able to sign with another team, so like
he would have won.
Yeah, so imagine Campbell gets cut by the 49ers. The Niners have to pay him, to essentially, like, I mean, he just sent like the biggest middle finger to them in the middle of the game, and they have to pay him to leave, and then him probably sign with Detroit next week, who is banged up all over their defense. Yeah. And then, hey, he'll play against the Niners in 2 weeks. Oh, you don't think I'm that good?
Yeah.
And then he'll go on to the NFC Championship game and, this and that. Instead, the 49ers, I think they did the right thing. Like, sometimes you need to make an example in order to establish a boundary between, like, what the players can get away with and what they can't get away with. And I feel like this season they've done a poor job of establishing that boundary, because, like, we saw with the Ayuk contract negotiation, Ayuk essentially did everything in his power to not want to be on the 49ers. He made a list of teams that he would play, he would love to play with. And, essentially, like, he just wanted to be paid. And, the 49ers essentially, they they messed up. They rewarded him for, throwing his tantrums on social media,
Mhm.
but they also, I think it was a similar situation, I think, with Debo, but not, I mean, to Debo's credit, he didn't really, put it out there to the extent that Ayuk did. I just remember Debo requesting a trade, Debo
Yeah.
holding out, him being at the club saying he doesn't want to be on the team. He wasn't like so public like Ayuk was, but yeah. So essentially, it was a good move for the Niners, I think, to make an example that that's unacceptable in their locker room. In terms of the Devondre Campbell situation, but like because you have players like Ricky Pearsall, who got shot this year and came back to play. Ricky Pearsall almost lost his life. Charvarius Ward, unfortunately, his, I think, 1-year-old, daughter passed away, and he's fighting to come back. I know you're laughing about something else.
It's
something on,
not laughing about that. Come on.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. And then
Sorry.
Trent Williams also, experienced a tragedy. I think his wife delivered a stillborn baby. And Trent Williams is also fighting through his injury, and he's fighting to try and come back and help his team. And then Devondre Campbell gets upset that the team that he signed with, because they needed a linebacker to replace the guy who tore his Achilles. This is all alleged, that this is probably his motivation. I don't know for a fact that this was his motivation, but I have a pretty good idea that it's because Dre Greenlaw came back. Campbell got benched, in favor of Dre Greenlaw. And Greenlaw played great. He played great. He got banged up. D. Winters got banged up. And then the 49ers were down to Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, who also played banged up. They were down to 2 linebackers. Warner, who's also playing on a fractured ankle, Warner's been playing on a fractured ankle since week 4, Mike. Did you know that?
I did not. I want to say, I don't know if it was this game or last week's game, he got hurt for like one play and he came out, but then he came right back in. I think it was this game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I didn't know that it was a fracture. Is it? I mean, obviously he can play on it, so it's not like major, but that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, he said that they shoot him up, for the pain. But yeah, like to me, it just reminds me of like the Terrell Owens, and in Madden, that like Madden clip where like, oh my God, he came back into the game and he's like limping.
Yeah.
Didn't Terrell Owens also play on like, a broken leg in or like a fractured leg in real life too?
He either had a broken leg or a torn ACL, and he played in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. That's crazy. But hey, it's the Super Bowl. You might never get that opportunity in your life.
Yeah.
So
my thing with Devondre Campbell is like, all right, like you mentioned, like they were down to what, 2 linebackers, like just him and Warner.
Well, him and Flanagan-Fowles did, I think, play through. I mean, he was also banged up too.
Yeah. But point being, like, the Niners needed him. And what actually, like, obviously I'm a Raider fan. Like, I'm not the type to get mad about something like this, but I actually was a little flustered by it because I'm like, all right, season's on the line. This is the biggest game of the year.
Yeah.
And they're calling his number. Hey, man, get out there. We need you. And he's like, nah. Dude.
Yeah.
Like, that's
a must-win game. But honestly, like, has this not been the pattern with this team? Like, they've been in a collection of talent that they necessarily didn't they never really got together as a team, I feel like. Because, I mean, the most blatant example, which I will go back to multiple times, and if you're tired of hearing about it, I'm so sorry, but the Deebo Samuel, Tabor Pepper Jake Moody incident, that's not a guy that looks like he's got somebody else's back, and then the head coach takes the side of the aggressor, of Debo. Debo was the one who initiated that, that, and then the coaches, Tabor Pepper overreacted. Oh, really? When did Tabor Pepper put his hands on Debo? If he had, he would have been gone, So I don't know. This team has just they're lacking that, cohesion that they had in years prior, and maybe getting rid of, like a veteran, like they did Eric Armstead this offseason. Also, maybe they're missing a little bit of leadership, because say what you want about Eric Armstead on the field, players looked up to him in the locker room, so I don't know. I didn't understand, I understand moving on from Eric Armstead, the player, but it just didn't make sense at the time with the contract, and they essentially had to pay him to leave. And now the 49ers have a weakness at defensive line.
Oh, I saw a report that they're likely going to cut Hargrave after the season.
Probably. And then I think that's like a situation where they're going to let Hargrave essentially seek out free agency, and, he'll probably be gone. And then, I don't know if the 49ers will have the ability to, match or try to get him at a lower cap number. But really, I don't know, but it just wasn't the right fit, I think, Hargrave, because the Eagles don't run the wide nine. And so the Niners were essentially or at least the Eagles at that time didn't run the wide nine. I don't know if they do right now, but the 49ers run the wide nine. So there is a lot of one-on-one pass rush, or a lot of double teams that the defensive line has to, fight through. And Javon Hargrave played very well on the Eagles when he was able to do one-on-one pass rush. He was able to beat defensive, offensive linemen, one-on-one. And it's a lot different when he's not necessarily a great run defender. He's more of a pass rush specialist. So it was just like a square peg in a round hole, It wasn't necessarily the right fit. So, I mean, I hope he does good. If he moves on with another team, that's fine. But yeah, I do want to get to a couple comments, or I do want to get to the comments, I guess, before we move on, because really there's nothing much else to say about the Rams game other than just the Niners blew it, and they were bad. I should have known. I even thought to text Mike, hey, I might pick the Rams here if it starts, if it's going to rain tonight. Yeah. And I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to go with 49ers, and it freaking cost me. Frank says, here to take my whooping. Yeah, Frank, I think, with the Raider flag there, or I guess the Pirate flag, but, we know what it is.
Yeah.
Let's see. Frank says, Shibo Spaniel has been a selfish dog, and Pyle allows it, tolerates it, and feeds into it. Yeah, I mean, essentially, like that situation, I really felt like, Shanahan did the wrong thing by taking Debo's side. If anything, you stay neutral, or you just try to change the subject. We're working on it, behind closed doors, or it's already been handled. We talked to both players. They were able to find common ground. Instead, it was, I think Tabor Pepper overreacted. Like, dude, all right, whatever. Joel says, what's up? Joel, thank you for, coming back, sharing your comments. Frank says, Niners defense was exceptional, held them to 12 points and no touchdown. What more can you ask for? Yeah, it's funny because I have been very critical of Nick Sorensen, but I mean, could it be that maybe Nick Sorensen is okay or fine as the defensive coordinator. He just didn't have the right personnel for it. Because I mean, the Rams offense just put up like 40 something on the Bills the week before. Well, it was against the Bills, right? Or was it the Lions? Rams.
The Bills.
Okay, yeah, I think it was the Bills. And so they had just put up like 40 something points on the Bills. And then they come against the Niners, and the Niners played so aggressively on defense. I was proud of them, honestly. They played their ass off, and the offense didn't show up. But yeah, I mean, Dre Greenlaw coming back, Hufanga coming back, that defense actually resembled like what they're supposed to look like,
Yep.
And then towards the end of the game, they didn't have the personnel. All the linebackers are injured. One just walked off the field. He's going to go clear his locker and, essentially give a big middle finger to the whole rest of the team. Yeah. It's not the Niners season this year. It just wasn't. We had I guess I'm not the only person who was saying it, but I do believe, the Super Bowl hangover is a real thing. And the 49ers experienced it this year. Really. That's what it feels like. This feels like the 2020 season again. Jesus M tuning in says, didn't fans not want to see Campbell on the field before the incident? Yeah, I mean, I'm fully willing to acknowledge Devondre Campbell has not played well this season, and I like D Winters a lot better, but D Winters wasn't available once he got injured. It's like it was Devondre Campbell or nobody, and instead it was, all right, Flanagan Fowles, you gotta go back out there because you're not 100% healthy, but you're healthier than the other guys in front of you. So, yeah. Let's see. What's the big deal? Campbell wasn't going to make a play anyways. I mean, it's not that he wasn't going to make a play. Like, Campbell was making plays here and there. It's just he would he's just too slow, But having Devondre Campbell is better than having a player that, doesn't necessarily have a lot of playing time this year, really being on the field a lot. I feel like I haven't seen a lot of Flanagan Fowles this year. He's been on the team, but to my understanding, he's been more of a special teams guy. So once you start getting people out of place in positions where they don't have all the repetition, they're not used to it. Like it's like in the Super Bowl, George Odom, once Dre Greenlaw went down, George Odom, or what? No, Oren Burks. I think it was Oren Burks. Had to step in, and we saw a completely different ball game after that. They literally went to that weakness. And so while I don't think Campbell was really that great, and I really wanted to see less of him, it's because I wanted to see more of D Winters at the time. And I guess more of Dre Greenlaw now that he's back from, the Achilles injury. So yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, all right, somebody having a teammate to have your back, I think is priceless, like at least try. And you just say you don't want to try and you suit up for the game, taking away a roster spot for somebody who could have been trying, the 49ers, the coaches, the players, they all thought that they could rely on him, and he turned their back.
If he's throwing a hissy fit because Dre Greenlaw came back, like, why didn't he ask to get cut weeks ago? Like, you knew this was coming. So I don't know why on primetime football you decide to do that during the game, third quarter. Like, that's just, yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't look good on Campbell. It doesn't look good on the 49ers. Doesn't look good on Shanahan. I'm very critical of Shanahan sometimes. This happened on his watch,
Yeah.
I wonder if he even knew that it happened, during the game, or if he's just like his head's so buried in his play sheet that like they had to tell him after the game, hey, Dan Campbell, not Dan Campbell, Devondre Campbell, he actually went into the locker room. Oh yeah? Oh, hold on. You gotta.
Yeah.
It's just like freaking. Well, you would think he would memorize that stupid ass playbook by now,
You would think.
With how much he just buries his face into it.
Regardless, it looks bad on the team. Like, it looks like, I know it's one guy. Like, this really does just feel like one guy being kind of a dipshit in Devondre Campbell. But at the same time, like, it feels like a team. Like, it's not fair to put it on the rest of the team. It's not fair to put it on, the guys that were out there post-game talking to the press, pissed off. George Kittle, Charvarius Ward, and probably every other teammate. They're probably all pissed off about it, but it's just a bad look for a team that clearly post-game is out of the playoffs, But again, the biggest thing to me is like during the game, third quarter, it's a one-possession game. You were down at most 6, but probably 3 at that point. Like, that's just bad. Like, I think when Vontae Davis retired at halftime for the Bills, it was like that might have been the Nathan Peterman game. I could be wrong, but the game where like Peterman threw 5 picks, and I wouldn't blame a player for being like, yeah, I'm done, But that was the thing for Vontae Davis, was like, I'm retiring. This was get me off this team because I'm not playing, or I don't want to play for them. That's just different.
Yeah. No, this was, oh, you don't want to play me? All right, watch when you need me. I'm not playing, it's selfish,
Yeah,
and then Vontae Davis was just like, yeah, you know what? This isn't for me anymore.
Yeah. So, and I guess my point with like towards the team is like, that's just a gut shot, I think, to the rest of the team of like, wow, like playoffs on the line, and we had a dude quit on us mid-game. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. So, I mean, did anybody have this on the bingo card of like horrible things that were going to happen to the Niners this season? Like in a list of like Super Bowl hangovers, I would say like you could argue that this was worse than their 2021. Because in 2020, like, yeah, the injuries I think were a lot more significant, and they like lost a lot of time from, like their starting quarterback, and, and time from like a lot of their stars, like Nick Bosa was down for the entire season after week 2. But like this year, it was like an emotional hangover as well, because it's like, I mean, just so much stuff going on outside of football, so many tragedies, and like, the players just kind of turning on each other. It's almost worse. And
and like visually seeing Kyle Shanahan just looking, what would the term be? Like, just not over it, but like
burnt out a little bit.
Burnt out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, Shanahan, visually you could see it.
Shanahan aged like a president, dude.
Dude, he has served 2 terms on this fucking team.
Yeah, he has. And how many Super Bowls did that net us? Surely at least one, right?
Right. Well, multiple losses. That'll do it.
Yeah, I can celebrate being a loser. No, I'm a spoiled fan. Well, I've never been spoiled in my lifetime, so I am just trying to hold on to the history that I always hear about. Yeah. So Joel says, because if he's just going to quit on the team, he's just taking up a roster spot. And then I do see that Jesus says, so just cut him. But the thing is, you can't do that mid-game and replace him with somebody in the middle of the game. Joel, I think, is talking about like if Campbell would have just said, hey, you know what? I'm not playing. Before the game, they could have put a guy like Jalen Graham in his
They could have
place.
made him inactive instead of somebody else.
Yeah.
And then to this point, like I wonder, do team suspensions cause the player to not be on the 53, or are they still, and then they just have to be inactive each game?
That's a good question that I don't know
Because
the
like
answer to.
the one like little easy to miss fact about every game is that there have to be like 9 players or 8 players inactive every game. So even if you suspend a player and he has to count against the 53, at least you're getting one less, not less inactive player, but you're putting Devondre Campbell inactive instead of somebody else, like you know, a third or fourth string linebacker that usually wouldn't play,
Mhm.
who actually gets to have his shot.
Well, I think like the main thing is in terms of like how many players you have for game day. They for sure can, I think, fill that void.
Yeah.
But in terms of the 53-man roster, I don't know exactly how it works, but regardless, it really doesn't matter. The Niners are not going to the playoffs. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, if this would matter if they were still kind of in it, but dude, like they just lost another divisional game, and they're so far back. There's only 3 games left.
Yeah.
It's over. But Jesus says Niners are going to have to overpay Greenlaw to keep him. Yep. I mean, it depends how the next couple weeks go, because if Greenlaw is like kind of injured, maybe they can get him at a little bit of a discount, But if he's playing like how he did today, or I mean not today, on Thursday, then maybe they will have to overpay. But they kind of underpaid him on his last contract. Like it was a very team friendly deal from my memory, but that was before he really started to like go off. But he's always been great as long as he's been on the Niners. He's always been a big playmaker, and really, I mean, if you want to think about it this way, he's kind of the Draymond Green of the 49ers, where he sets the tone defensively. Like you could actually see the difference between the defense on Thursday versus the entire season, and he's always the one who gets the personal foul penalties. Draymond's the one with the technical fouls. Hey, they're both Dre. One's Draymond and the other's Dre Greenlaw. So, they both have green in their name. Draymond Green and Greenlaw. So, justice has been served. Let's see. Frank says, I can appreciate how Lynch handled the Campbell issue, but he shouldn't have had to. That problem should have never left the locker room or the sideline. Yeah. But I mean, if the 49ers, well, actually, I saw something today. Nick Bosa knew that Campbell was going to do this, but he didn't think that it would get this bad.
Huh.
Nick Bosa knew that this could have happened, but he decided not to speak up, is what he told reporters.
Jeez. I don't know how that happens, but all right. Hey.
Yeah, so Nick, thank you for your contribution.
Thanks, Captain.
Yeah. Bosa's very selective with his words, so really, like, maybe he had something a little bit more important to say to somebody,
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Someone decided to send the Campbell issue upstairs, and now it is everywhere. All right, here's the thing, though. It's a bad look for the team, but right now, everybody has been talking about Devondre Campbell, including us. Everybody's been talking about Devondre Campbell, and nobody is talking about the fact that the 49ers just lost a must-win game, only put up 6 points. 6? Only 6, 2 field goals?
Yeah. I saw
in a must-win game.
Yeah. I saw a tweet about that, like, man, Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy should be thinking they're lucky stars that Devondre Campbell got kicked out, because they would be getting clobbered right now by the media. Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. Yeah, no, dude. Freaking Yeah, Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy, I mean, they lost, but they won, dude. They dodged a massive criticism bullet because nobody's talking about it. Let's see. Gross Matos and Floyd are slow. I mean, they're defensive ends, but yeah, I mean, the Niners are going to have to also improve, an aggressive defensive tackle. They need to add a, D tackle and DN. Let's see. What would Walsh or Seifert or even Mooch have done? Well, those were all before my time, but let's see. Oh, God. I was just listening to Grant and his dad. I'm trying to think. I feel like they got a similar question. And yeah, I think Devondre Campbell would not have been a 49er. He wouldn't have had an opportunity to call himself a 49er still before he hit the locker room. But I there's no way I could know, with any of these coaches. I would love to ask, Seifert or Mariucci, like what would they have done? Maybe they've already talked about it.
Yeah.
All right. Not exceptional defense, especially again on run. I mean, they held the Rams to 12 points, like they did not allow a single touchdown.
Yeah. For the most, again, first half, they were just forcing punts left and right. And then maybe mostly in the second half, they would allow some drives to get to the red zone, and then they would stop them on third down. And that's why it was, 4 field goals to 2 field goals, because the defense never gave up too much. It was just, again, what the media might have been focusing more on is the fact that the Niners couldn't score more than 6 points. That's crazy.
Yeah, I honestly think overall the defense was not the reason why they lost this football game. But yeah, I mean, towards the end of the game, I mean, they couldn't stop the run at the end of the game, but what more do you want them to do? They gave Brock Purdy and the offense an opportunity to have a game-winning drive. And Purdy chucks it up on 2nd and 11 and throws an interception, in the end zone. So I don't put it on the defense in this one. And then we've got ew, and bigger ew.
Oh.
He said, oh, man. Chief, I appreciate you for checking out the channel.
Get out.
But, man, God, this one hurts the most. You know what I mean? Like, it's one thing to rep your team, but it's another thing, this is like if this was real life, it's almost like, let's just say someone's in love with a very attractive person, and then somebody just comes in and swoops in, and gets married with that person. They're like, hey, you really messed up that one, huh? Check out my hot wife right here.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could have thought of a better analogy, but man, when I think about it, it's not good. Thank you for reminding me of why I should be depressed. And yeah, there might not be a show next week. No, I'm just playing.
He's even got the rings on his profile photo.
Does he? Oh, yeah. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I know nothing about that. Sorry, I wasn't around for hours. But yeah, congratulations on making me feel bad. Frank says, if Bosa knew, others must have known. Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Which, that serves the question like, how did that not get to the coaching staff? How did that not get to, unless the front office knew and it was like, well, if he does, he's going to find out what happens. But is that, that's not, when the season's on the line, that's not acceptable,
Mm-hmm.
So it better not have gotten to the coaching staff or the front office.
Mm-hmm.
But even
shout out
players, yeah.
Shout out to my cousin Daniel who's watching the stream. He says Kansas City bought those rings. Yeah, man.
At the very least, they use some dark voodoo magic.
Mike, have you seen the Kansas City Chiefs uniforms?
I've seen them a couple times, but I'm curious.
They're on sale on Amazon.
I think I know what you're gonna say.
Let's see.
Sam.
Yeah, right here. They actually even come with a whistle and a flag.
Yeah, the replica. That's
you
what
can
this
get it
means.
from Dick's Sporting Goods. You can get
When
it
the fans
from
do this, the tomahawk chop, right? Is that what they do? What it really is throwing the flag.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, all right, refs aside, the Niners have plenty of chances to win that Super Bowl. I'm just, my heart can only take disappointment so much before I'm just numb to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's talk about the 49ers versus Dolphins. How do you feel about this game, Mike? Personally, I think I still like the Niners' chances in this, unless it rains.
Is this at Miami or at home?
It's at Miami.
Okay.
So I don't think it will rain.
Oh man, this
unless
is tough.
It's humid.
Yeah, I think because Shanahan knows McDaniels so well, and just considering how good the Niners defense looked this past week, I'd have to imagine they'll do better against the Dolphins defense than the Rams, because I just think the Rams are hot right now, and the Dolphins are by no means a hot team. They just lost to the Texans, like 20-12 or something like that.
Dude, the Rams are really going to win the NFC West because every single other team imploded and they didn't.
Yeah, Geno just got hurt for the Seahawks, so yeah, they might. And I think they might play the Rams. Yeah, they play the Rams the final week of the season, or they play the Seahawks, whatever. Those two teams play each other. But
yeah.
Honestly, picking between the Niners and the Dolphins is kind of a toss-up for me. But it also sucks because neither of these teams are playing for anything at this point. Like, there's no way the Dolphins are still in the playoff hunt after losing to the Texans. At least I think it was the Texans. But I think I got to go with the Niners.
I'm going with the Niners too. And the reason why is because I really feel like the defense took a step forward and the Dolphins never all right, they were horrible without Tua and Tua's obviously playing again, but they never really got their rhythm this year. Even when Tua came back, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle never really those are the bread and butter of the offense. And the Dolphins, I really feel like this year went in the direction of Jonnu Smith. And it's kind of worked for them, but you just don't get that same offensive explosiveness. And also, there's just something off about the Dolphins. They look, sometimes they just look really bad against competent teams. And I'm not saying that the 49ers are necessarily a really good team this year, but the Niners are talented. And I feel like the whole Devondre Campbell situation is something that can rally the team together, for the players who do care. And so, I just don't see Shanahan as the type of coach to tank. I think he's going to try to win every single game that he ever coaches. I don't think he'll ever lose on purpose unless he has the lead in a Super Bowl in the fourth quarter. And he's got money on the other team, I guess. But yeah, man, I think that, Tua said it, that I think they asked him, they asked him something in a press conference, and he was already looking forward to Cabo or Mexico, for a team trip. He's mentally checked out. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. Yeah, give me the 49ers. Let's take a look at our updated screen here. So, I was an idiot this past week, and I picked the 49ers. So now Mike and I are tied. And so we might finish that way if we keep having the same picks. Yeah. I feel pretty good about picking the Niners. I just think that I can't pick the Dolphins,
Yeah.
Even though it's in Miami. I mean, they could win. I think it's SF. It's probably in the Niners' best interest to lose, but maybe that would just like really bog down the morale. Like if the Niners win 2 out of their next 3, I'd say they'd probably be feeling a little bit better about the season. But overall, no matter what, it's a disappointment. Like if they win 3 out of their next 3, like that's like a little thing to look forward to for the following season. But I mean, this year's kind of it's a lost cause. So, they can only regroup and go back next year. And I guess it's not official yet. Like they aren't eliminated, so they could still be trying to hold out hope and still try for the playoffs. But I think that they know, we know. Yeah. There is one thing, one other thing I did want to say, but I'm having a Super Bowl hangover moment right now in my brain. So, yeah. All right, let's get to the comments, and then we'll flip over to the Raiders section. I like the Niners over Miami this time, says Frank. 0.1% chance. So you're saying there's a chance. Oh, actually, we are not going to get to the Raiders yet because I do want to talk about Brock Purdy's contract. There have been a lot of rumors over the past couple of days. I think, Tom Pelissero recently reported something about Purdy seeking, like the top contract extension. So let me pull that up for everybody so that way we can all, be looking at the same thing. I want to say Diana Rossini, another NFL insider, also, thinks that Shanahan and Purdy are both here to stay, So let's see. Brock Purdy contract. Let's see. Let me pull one that has the all right. I'll pick the Dove Kleiman one. Okay, so 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy is seeking a contract that is, quote unquote, at the top of the quarterback market per Tom Pelissero. Don't expect Purdy to accept an offer that would make him the 10th highest paid quarterback at the position. That would approximately be $50 million per year. What do you think of this, Mike?
10th highest would be around 50?
I think so.
Cool. Can you pull up the top 10 paid quarterbacks right now?
Yes. Top quarterback salaries.
I mean, one part of this for sure is the agent. Like, I know the agents kind of drive this. Okay, so Dak's at 60. And yeah, so 10th would be around 50, if not less. Because the average per year, like the third column after age or second after age. I mean, looking at these names, oof. I don't think I would pay him more than Jordan Love. Based off of his accomplishments, I would pay him more than Trevor Lawrence. I would pay him more than Tua Tagovailoa. Based off his accomplishments. I mean, Jared Goff's a little similar because he's been to a Super Bowl and stuff, and right now he's leading arguably the best team in football, even though they've got a lot of injuries and shit. Herbert, God, the Chargers have a singing deal with Herbert right now, and the Ravens. Yep. Oh my gosh.
Even the Bengals. I mean, well, Joe Burrow's the second highest, annual, but he's at least playing like it.
Right.
He is worth every penny. Yeah. That's my issue with no matter what, if you extend Brock Purdy to a contract that is, upwards of, $40 million, are we going to get $40 million play?
Right.
Because Matthew Stafford right there is at that baseline. And Matthew Stafford is a better quarterback than Brock Purdy. Josh Allen is a better quarterback than Brock Purdy.
There's another deal.
Patrick Mahomes is a better quarterback than Brock Purdy. Kirk Cousins, I don't think he's better than Brock Purdy.
We'll get to Cousins.
We'll get to Cousins.
Yeah.
Watson is not better.
Deshaun Watson, that's great. Well, okay, here's my thing. Here's my thing about like Purdy and taking a deal like that. Like, okay, Josh Allen when he got his contract, Mahomes when he got his contract. Like, I remember when Mahomes got his deal, it was like, whoa, like that's gonna hurt them.
Yeah.
And no, it didn't. In part because it's Patrick fucking Mahomes, like he's the best quarterback in football. But I mean, look at Josh Allen. Like, I guess my point isn't like whether or not it'll hurt the team. It's more of when you pay the quarterback the top paid price, like, okay, basically over the course of say 2 to 3 years, they're going to look like Josh Allen right now, where it's like, oh, he's not a top 10 paid quarterback anymore because other quarterbacks are going to get paid and they're all trying to reset the market no matter what. The one outlier is Dak Prescott because somehow the Cowboys gave him $5 million more than any other quarterback, where you have literally Burrow, Love, and Lawrence all tied at 55. Like, why didn't Dak get 57, not 60? Like whatever made the Cowboys agree to that, I have no idea. But other than that, like, Kyler Murray could get re-signed right now. He'd go, I don't know if he'd get 61, but he'd get more than Joe Burrow just to reset the market, just to keep the market consistently going up. So, I mean, it'll hurt the cap space, but if you sign Purdy to like say $57 million per year right now, or better yet, let's just say 55, like just match Joe Burrow,
Yeah.
Give it 2 to 3 seasons when you're halfway through the deal, he might not even be the 10th highest paid quarterback anymore because guys like Burrow, Jordan Love, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, they're going to get repaid, plus other guys who are younger, and they're all going to pass up Purdy, and then it'll make more sense, It's just at first it's going to be like, oof, that's steep,
Mm-hmm. All right, personally, I am of the belief that if you don't have the guy, you shouldn't pay the guy, because then you get into a situation like the Giants were in with Daniel Jones, where they were forced to pay him. And Purdy is a better player than Daniel Jones. I'm really not trying to, compare those necessarily, like their play styles at all.
Yeah.
But I mean, think about it this way. Think about it like from a business perspective and like a good organization, like a good decision from a good organization and a bad decision, right? So like people always talk about the quarterback market. Oh, that's just the market rate. So Purdy, I mean, you're going to have to pay Purdy, right? And I mean, for me, he can always just play out his contract and you can franchise tag him. And like, what is Purdy not going to play when the 49ers can, they can bring Sam Darnold back this offseason if he's available. They can get somebody, to just run Shanahan's offense. Isn't the big thing that they don't want the quarterback to change the play at the line of scrimmage? They just want, Shanahan wants the quarterback to throw the ball to a particular spot. Like, yes, Brock Purdy is better than Jimmy Garoppolo. Brock Purdy is better than Trey Lance. Brock Purdy is better than Brian Hoyer. Brock Purdy is better than Nick Mullins. Brock Purdy is better than CJ Beathard. But what do all those players have in common? Or most of those, not all those players, but some of those players have in common.
They suck.
Well, yeah. Actually, all those players pretty much do suck. Like,
they're all backups.
Yeah. All right. So let's take a look at this. Brian Hoyer. Nobody wanted Brian Hoyer. He was the backup to Jay Cutler on the freaking Bears before we got him. Right? we got him over Jay Cutler, and we missed out on drafting Patrick Mahomes. We missed out on drafting, Deshaun Watson that draft, which Watson now is irrelevant. He probably will never return to the player that he once was. So you had a quarterback that nobody wanted, and you drafted CJ Beathard, and CJ Beathard is not a very good quarterback, right? Yeah, they took their shot, but it was in the third round. It was a couple rounds too late. They had the third pick in the draft, and they chose their option was, or their plan A was to get Kirk Cousins. Not very good at evaluating quarterbacks, I'd say, if that was your first option, plan A. So then there was Nick Mullins, right? Nick Mullins was also an option. I guess Jimmy Garoppolo technically was there before, but Nick Mullins' tenure did not last as long as Garoppolo's. But Nick Mullins was an undrafted player, right? Of course he's not going to lead, he's not going to be a franchise quarterback, right? And I know the argument is Brock Purdy was one pick away from being undrafted, and he right now is on the fence of like, all right, is he a franchise quarterback? Like those arguments are being made right now. But Jimmy Garoppolo, I mean, his skill set is the skill set of a backup quarterback. He was able to win games just being good enough to be a backup quarterback in the NFL. Trey Lance was the most underdeveloped prospect in draft history. The 49ers moved up to get him, right? And I liked Trey Lance, but they were never committed to the project. So in comparison, Brock Purdy, by default, is the best quarterback that they've had, right?
Yep.
Not necessarily the premier competition that you think it is. Who's to say that another quarterback can't come in here? Like a couple years ago, the Niners fell asleep and the Rams traded for Matthew Stafford. The Niners could have had Stafford a couple years ago. Rams got him instead. Opportunities will present themselves to get quarterbacks. It's just right now the problem is this regime is their track record of getting quarterbacks is bad. So Brock Purdy, by far being the best quarterback that they've had, is true. He is by far the best quarterback that they've had. And you can even argue that Brock Purdy is the best quarterback that they've had since Jeff Garcia. If you really want to compare Brock Purdy to Kaepernick, if you want to compare him to Alex Smith, but you could argue best quarterback since Jeff Garcia. You can even argue best quarterback since Steve Young, in the 49ers. But does that put him in the same tier of guys like Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, that doesn't put him in Joe Burrow. It doesn't put him in the upper echelon of players. I think personally, you should always be searching for those guys. And if you are going to sign if you're going to tie your hands to Brock Purdy, you're wasting time that you could be searching for the next guy. Because they could have won the Super Bowl with Brock Purdy, but you know what? How about getting a guy that, all right, you know what? You're the favorite to win because your quarterback's just badass and can make every single throw on the field and knows. I mean, Brock Purdy knows where to go with the football most of the time.
But it's basically like the Chiefs going from Alex Smith to Mahomes, that's what the Niners could do. And I mean, in essence, that's what they tried to do with Garoppolo to Trey Lance, right?
Yeah.
It's just that unfortunately that didn't work out with the development and everything. Yeah. Yeah, so I want you to ask yourself, don't think about the Niners right now. Do you think the Cowboys were smart for signing Dak Prescott to that contract? Yes, I mean, it's just slightly above the market rate. Do you think they're smart, Mike? No. What's crazy is, look at the age of all these guys except for two others. Well, 3, 4, towards the bottom, actually. But
do you think that the Dolphins... they're like, well, if the Dolphins could do it, who the hell are the Dolphins? What have they done?
Yeah.
Nothing. Who the hell are the Dolphins? Okay?
Yeah.
Tua literally pissed down his leg against Kansas City last year in cold weather. Literally, all right. You know, the Niners are going to play the Dolphins this week. Literally look at them because they were horrible without Tua. With Tua, they're not going to be good enough to win a Super Bowl. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, oh my God.
What?
I'm sorry. I don't mean to. Actually, I'll go off of your topic first. Yeah, like the only thing the Dolphins have done is have like a high scoring offense for a couple years, but like this year, no, you know. And he's never won a playoff game, I don't think. So,
Tua's only 26?
I know. Well, that was kind of my point. I was saying was like Dak is the one guy towards the top of this list besides Jared Goff who's above 30. But then you have guys like Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, Matt Stafford, Kirk Cousins, But then what I was just reacting to right now is I was like, well, let me look at like the total years on these contracts, because at first I looked at total value for Dak Prescott, 240. And then I go down when I see Burrow's actually got more on total value. So he's got to have like another year on his deal. It's like his was like a 6 or 7 year deal or something. But then I was like, wait, and I went over to fully guaranteed, or like, no, total guaranteed, which fully, whatever, it's the same thing. And then I just was looking down, and then I see Deshaun Watson's, and I just remembered they fully guaranteed his contract, dude. Deshaun Watson committed highway robbery on the fucking Browns. It's insane. Oh my God. They really.
Real quick, I do want to talk about I do want to talk about this. I'm pulling up Brock Purdy's stats compared to Matt Ryan's 2016 stats in the Kyle Shanahan offense. So Brock Purdy last season was his best season. I will say Brock Purdy was great last year, right?
Yeah, he's been very good.
Played 16 games. Completed 69.4% of his passes, had 4,280 passing yards, 31 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, right?
Yep.
Matt Ryan had 4,944 passing yards, 38 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions.
Yeah, I mean, that was prime MVP Matt Ryan, though. Like
who's to say that wasn't prime MVP? Well, the prime Purdy. Who's to say Purdy gets better?
I guess that's where my mind kind of goes next. Is like,
oh shit, sorry.
The tough thing with Purdy is like, when he was drafted, he was never expected to be a top 10 paid quarterback ever. Not that the expectations matter. Like, freak things happen. Nobody expected Russell Wilson to be not a Hall of Famer, a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Dak Prescott, he's the highest paid quarterback right now. He was a 4th round pick. Like, the expectations of the draft pick don't really matter. But still, I think to your point, as far as like what the Niners should do, it would be much wiser to franchise tag him for 2 seasons and really gauge in those essentially contract years for him. Should we really pay him top dollar? But also give yourself the time to draft another quarterback.
Yeah,
because that's what smart teams do, is they draft quarterbacks like the Eagles.
Yeah. So what the 49ers should do and what they will do are going to be completely different. I can tell you right now, what will happen is the 49ers will sign Brock Purdy to, upwards of $50 million, this offseason. And it's going to be a deal. Like, it's going to be a deal where you look at it a couple of years from now and it's, wow, the 49ers structured this very well and they can get out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's not a terrible negative. And it goes back to my old point. The first point of this was like, in a couple of years, it'll look good if you get it done now, because if you do the franchise tag route, you're going to be paying him at least $60 million per year. Whereas right now you might be able to get under 60,
Uh-huh.
So, I
Yeah,
mean,
I guess. Yeah. But like my point is right now, I mean the Commanders were in quarterback hell, and then they got Jaden Daniels,
yeah.
who is a guy that in a couple years, as long as he stays healthy and doesn't regress, is looking promising, like a guy that you would pay top dollar for. Bryce Young had a horrible start to his career, but he is turning it up.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, all right. Nobody thought anything of Bo Nix, and Bo Nix is playing, he's playing his ass off.
Yeah.
I can't even find Bo Nix on this list. Where is he?
He was on there. Broncos. It'll be orange, I think. Yeah. Go up.
Yeah. But, oh, yeah, Bo Nix right there. Even Stidham is making more money than him. So let me find Brock Purdy here. Brock Purdy right here. Currently, his average salary is less than $1 million.
Wow. He's getting
And
paid less than Aiden O'Connell. That's crazy.
So, yes, does Brock Purdy deserve more than this? Absolutely. I'm not saying, and I'm not, all right, I want to be very clear. Brock Purdy, in my opinion, is doing the right thing by asking for the most money that he can, because this might be the only contract. I mean, if he continues being a great player, he'll get another contract. But, like players in general should always be trying to get the most that they can. So right now, what Brock Purdy and his agent have to be thinking is that, Purdy has a lot more accolades and playoff success than Dak Prescott. He's got more playoff wins than Lamar Jackson. He's got more playoff wins than most of the quarterbacks on this list, not named Patrick Mahomes. So he has that going for him, which is the main reason why I think the 49ers will pay him. And then also too, like, all right, there's been talk about whether or not, like, he's having like the Jimmy Garoppolo regression. And yes, Purdy hasn't had a great season this year, but dude, Jimmy was horrible to watch. Purdy, I mean, he has bad games here and there, but most quarterbacks do. Jimmy just sucked.
I think one thing I did want to say earlier is, like, Purdy has had his good games. I still wonder if he's got an injury that's kind of ailing him right now, because that Rams game, like the Rams game and the Bills game, it looks like they didn't want to pass the ball for a reason,
Yeah.
And I think when he was passing the ball, it wasn't always looking very good, So I don't know if he's got some sort of shoulder thing or something that's bugging him.
Another reason why you don't want to
sense.
lock him up for a mass extension.
Yeah.
Like maybe I'm just being cheap, because, like, all right, if you think about it this way, all right, the 49ers probably going to move on from Deebo Samuel and Hargrave this year. So that's already the money right there that would have been spent. And I would rather have Brock Purdy on the team going forward than Deebo and Hargrave, But, I mean, to me, if you're going to pay money for a quarterback, pay money for a quarterback, and like that's really disrespectful for me to say about Brock Purdy, because, I mean, he has been good, but he's just not great. Like, in Breaking Bad, when Walter Jr. is like, if you're going to buy me off, talking about, like, Walt was going to buy a car for his son. And then, the son's like, if I'm going to get a car, I'm going to get a car. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, think about it this way. If everybody, like, let's just say everybody's buying cars right now, and Lamborghinis are going for, $55 million typically, or between $40 million and $60 million, somewhere in that price range. And you roll up with a Toyota Corolla, yeah, it might be able to drive you from A to B, but you don't have a Lamborghini like everyone else.
Yeah, you're not winning the race.
And that's not me saying that all of these guys are Lamborghinis. But what I am saying is not every organization makes a great decision. which has led to this market being stupid. This quarterback market, Mike, we can agree, this quarterback market is dumb. And so the 49ers they can point to it and say, well, by gosh, the quarterback market is horrible. So that if everybody else is making a bad decision, I guess that we have to make one too, right? Like, we just can't get rid of Brock Purdy. Everybody wanted Brock Purdy. We took him with the last pick of the draft, And yeah, if everybody knew Brock Purdy was going to be this good, but like, all right, now it's like you're going to handcuff yourself to him. What happens if you find a quarterback that's better than Purdy? You know what's going to happen? That quarterback is going to be last on the depth chart and might be the best quarterback on the team, just like in 2022.
Yeah.
Brock Purdy almost didn't even make the team, and he was the best quarterback on the roster. They could have kept Nate Sudfeld.
Yeah.
That's what blows my mind. And then Shanahan, tries to take credit for it. Like, oh, I knew he was the best quarterback all along. It's like, start him.
Why didn't he start? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you were willing to lose games and get off to a slow start because you were just playing around, right? Like, I don't know, dude. They took a swing, with the whole Trey Lance situation. There wasn't a right player to pick in that draft, which sucks. They were never committed. What if Trey Lance had gotten the time that Bryce Young had gotten? Which is a little different because Bryce Young won a Heisman and Trey Lance, had one season in FCS, but you know what I mean? It's like they just go with whoever wins games. I don't even think Shanahan goes with quarterbacks that like, maybe it's John Lynch and Parag and the Yorks. Maybe the Yorks are like, you know what? This quarterback looks like he's the face of the franchise. We got to pay him. Like, that's what happened with Garoppolo. It took them five wins to make Jimmy Garoppolo the highest paid player in NFL history. 5 wins. They played themselves out of premier position to draft Josh Allen. They could have had like the first pick in the draft. They could have taken Josh Allen, and then Shanahan could have benched him instead. And then he would have never been Josh Allen.
Yeah.
I'm going on my rant today, dude, because like really, like I said, what is going to happen is the 49ers are going to extend him. And I like Purdy. I don't know if he's worth, I don't know if he's worth this much. And that's not personal at Purdy. Like I'll say this. I don't think Jared Goff is worth this much money. I don't think that Deshaun Watson is absolutely not worth that money. Kirk Cousins is not worth this money. Patrick Mahomes is worth more than what he's getting right now. Like this market, the market is dumb because of every team making poor decisions. That's why one team is winning all the Super Bowls. Right? Couldn't that be also a reason why nobody else is winning Super Bowls? Josh Allen is, his annual salary is right behind Mahomes. I bet you he's like, hey man, they're on to something here. He's like, I don't need all that money. I just want to win one Super Bowl before I die. What do you think, Mike?
Man. Well, it just hit me there. I think the Bills might be the favorite this year.
Probably.
The way they beat they beat the Lions. The Chiefs are the Chiefs. Like, let's be honest. But then again, like, they don't look as dynamic as they used to, whereas the Bills do. And the Lions have been looking like the favorite all year, but they keep getting more and more injured. And then the other teams that are left are like the Eagles and the Ravens. I could see the Eagles, but hey, the playoffs will be interesting. But I got nothing else really on the quarterback thing.
I do. So I'm glad that you brought up the Bills because the Bills and the 49ers are very similar. Both head coaches have had, like similar lengths of their tenure with the team. And
they've had like nihilistic ways of, talking to the media or their teams.
I'm not
Sean
even so
McDermott.
much I'm not even so much talking about that, but like both teams have been like top of the league, right? Like
Yeah.
and both teams pretty much lose to the Chiefs every single time that they go, super far, or
Yeah.
they haven't won the Super Bowl. They haven't won the big game, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to know what set the Bills apart from the 49ers this year?
Man. Oh, I mean, their quarterback's playing like an MVP. I mean, probably should be the MVP. It's either him or Lamar right now.
Okay. So, without even thinking about the quarterbacks, because that's the biggest thing, the Bills, they got rid of Stephon Diggs because he was clearly unhappy and wanted to be the focal point.
Yeah.
The 49ers have had two situations this year with Ayuk and with Deebo Samuel. Ayuk wanting to be a top paid receiver, and then the Niners gave him what he wanted. The Bills got rid of Stephon Diggs, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they did pay him top dollar, but they weren't winning. He wasn't happy there. They sent him on his way. Deebo Samuel wanted the ball. They gave him the ball, and now they're not going to make the playoffs, right? Josh Allen is an MVP favorite, and their best guy hasn't even been playing. Keon Coleman, or I guess you could argue Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper is their best guy. Like, that's another thing, And then you might be sitting thinking at home, well, yeah, but the Bills have Josh Allen, and that's my point of why you shouldn't pay Brock Purdy more than Josh Allen. That's my point.
Yeah.
Small things can lead to completely different outcomes. So yeah, let's take some comments because I want to hear what you guys think about it. Let's see. Purdy will get paid more than he is worth eventually, but with which team? Yeah, I tweeted the other day, after that report came out about, like the whole Tom Pelissero thing. I tweeted, I'm like, I really hope Brock Purdy gets what he's looking for with the New York Giants. Because, yeah, it's too much for me, but I'm not the one cutting the checks. So I'm just the one who buys all the merchandise and wants them to win a Super Bowl, but I'll never get it. 6 or 7 on that list are equal or better. In terms of 6 or 7 players are equal to Purdy or better. So Purdy will get minimum $50 million.
Yeah, looking at that list for sure.
Probably. How much do we think that Sam Darnold would get? That's a good question.
And what a turnaround for him, dude. Man. Oh man, that's
36. 36 per year.
Can you pull up the list again?
Yeah.
What I'm really curious about is would the Vikings be the highest bidder for him, or would somebody else, like, say, I think the Raiders and Giants are definitely drafting quarterbacks, but say the Saints or I don't know, some team that just decides they're going to change that quarterback, like, would they pay up more than the Vikings? I guess it depends on the cap space. But okay, you said how many? 37? 36?
I said 36 without looking at the list, but I'd say he's right around in the ballpark. Yeah, he's going to get more than Carr, but like I was in the ballpark.
Wow, Baker Mayfield's a fucking deal right now for the Buccaneers. Sorry. I think
he is a deal, and that was a similar situation to the whole Darnold thing.
Very similar. Yeah. I think he would get at least 40. I'm just looking at this. I would say you got to pass up Deshaun Watson.
Yeah,
I'd say
but
46.
okay, but here's the thing. They have JJ McCarthy. Who's going to give Sam Darnold 40? Who?
Right. That's
I
the
would
tough.
rather have
That's why I
I'd
think the
rather have
Vikings are the only one.
personally, I saw what it looked like with Sam Darnold on the 49ers. I think would rather have Brock. You know? I think my
Yeah.
thing is not so much that I would rather have Darnold for that for a cheaper price. It's that if they're gonna be paid the same, dude, like I don't know, man. I just don't want an expensive quarterback who's not the answer. That's my thing. And I don't think Sam
Yeah.
Darnold is the answer. He
Well,
could
I
be a
think
bridge quarterback.
I think if the Vikings are able to do it right, they could do like what do you call that? Like a prove it deal. What do you call incentivized deal, you know? Um
So Baker and Geno, very similar, like wrote off by the league, were nearly like out and like tossed out of the league. So I'd say if you're thinking realistic, Carr was a starter for many years. Sam Darnold is playing on a very good team, really good system, playing the best football of his career right now. I'd say it's in the ballpark, should not be more than 40. Should not be more.
yeah. Man,
Because
his
a lot of these players, one thing they have all in common is multiple years of starting before getting this contract. You know,
hmm.
I
Yeah,
don't
yeah. I
I don't see any players that were just like, oh, they started 1 year. It's Geno Smith, and this is what he's making.
yeah.
Baker Mayfield, 1 year starting for the Buccaneers. This is what he's making.
Man, I think a incentivized deal with not too many guarantees makes the most sense for the Vikings. Like at least like if it ain't broke, don't fix it type of thing. Like you have the next guy coming in McCarthy in theory. And that's a good, you know, break glass in case of emergency sort of thing. But if they're going to continue to be this 12-2 team with Sam Darnold, you can't just let him go, you know? And if you let him hit the market, suddenly it's going to become a competition. And that's when his price is really going to go up. So they have to do something. I don't know if he's eligible to be franchise tagged. I mean, that would make the most sense for them. But if you could do some sort of incentivized deal with like a low guarantee, that would make the most sense, you know? But like right now, you could argue he's a Pro Bowler. In fact, he probably will be.
Damn, dude. Oh God, for $6 million more, the Niners could have had Sam Darnold. But I'm sure Darnold wanted to go to somewhere where he had an opportunity to start.
Yeah, for sure.
I love how
I mean,
everybody else's contract, except for these guys up here, it's like very complicated. And then actually, they're not complicated at all. I'm just stupid. I
yeah.
was looking at Sam Darnold versus everybody under him, but those are like
Mm,
rookie contracts.
yeah. I think to answer the question from Joel, though, like he's definitely getting more than Baker Mayfield, I would say, at 33. So I'd say anywhere between 35 to 45 would be my guess for next year, just because of how good he's played this year. But I don't know.
What world do we live in where, all right, that's how the freaking cap, the salary cap for the quarterback market is stupid. All
Well,
right, Sam
that's
Darnold just had one good year after being horrible his entire career. He's now getting paid more than Josh Allen.
yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at it, like once you get between Geno, really to Derek Carr and Aaron Rodgers, like that's when the market just becomes, yeah, if you're a starting quarterback in this league, you're getting paid $40 million minimum. You know?
We got into this situation because, all right, teams paid Mahomes this much money, and then other teams tried to be like, yeah, you know what? They're paying Mahomes that much, but our guy's better than Mahomes. We want to prove it. They're going to be paid even more than him, when really it should be like, all right, Mahomes got paid the most. It's like, all right, not as good as Mahomes, but I guess it has to do with the percentage of the salary cap, going up every single year. And it's
the agents.
It's just stupid because nobody else gets a raise the way quarterbacks get a raise. Like quarterback salary cap has gone up, I feel like, way higher, way faster than any other position.
But I'd say with that comes, for one, obviously it's the most important position in football. And what I was going to say is, like, part of the reason why the price goes up for guys that aren't as good as Mahomes, like the reason why Kirk Cousins and Deshaun Watson and whoever else are getting paid more than Mahomes after he gets paid, is because in theory, the counter to them getting paid by the team is them leaving the team and getting paid by somebody else. Like, that's part of the negotiation, is like, well, if you don't pay me, I'll just leave, and maybe they pull off the 2 years of franchise tagging and all of that, but maybe they hold out, maybe they this, maybe they that, right?
Yeah.
Like, I guess the point is, just part of the negotiation is, if you don't pay me accordingly, I will leave. So, these teams know, well, this is a quarterback that we're winning with, or at least for most of these teams are winning with. I don't know about the Jags did win a playoff game with Trevor Lawrence. And then if they hadn't won with the guy in the past, at the very least, he's super talented, right? He's a known, like, top end quarterback. It's like, you have to pay them, and it's the market going up and the agents and everything. So It is what it is.
Yeah. I'm over here. Like, I'm going to try and, really, pull at Brock Purdy's heartstrings right now, because everybody talks about how, he's a devout, Christian and all this stuff. And, one of the sins in the Bible, Brock, is greed. Okay. So if you don't want to go to hell, you'll take a team-friendly deal. I'll just put it to you that way, Yeah. So show us how Christian you are, Brock. Bet you didn't think about that one, huh? No, I'm just kidding, Brock. You're going to heaven. You're a good dude. Just please take a pay cut. Stay. All right, we could double your salary. How about that?
Yeah, he still wouldn't be getting paid as much as Darnold at $10 million per year.
Yeah. Oh man. Hey, Darnold went to the playoffs this year, Brock. You want to make $11 million?
Yeah.
Sammy Dimes is going to be Sammy Millions too. He will cost almost as much as Purdy. Yeah. I think Purdy's going to get like at least $10 million more. If Minnesota goes far, the price and interest goes up. I'd say the interest goes up for sure. Does Sam Darnold all of a sudden, like, look at Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones had 1 year where he went to the playoffs and then became one of the highest paid, players in the NFL.
I'm very curious to see how Sam Darnold plays in the playoffs, because if he plays poised in the playoffs, the price definitely will go up, not just for the Vikings, but every team.
Did Case Keenum ever get like a massive contract?
I don't know if he got a massive contract, because I think the difference with most quarterbacks relative to Darnold is, like, they don't win this consistently over the course of a season. Usually when a backup comes in and they do good enough to, like, earn a job somewhere else, it's because their team had a back and forth season, but, like, statistically they were okay, and they had their flashy moments. Like, Darnold is just, like, it's not even crazy flashy. It's just his stats are staying nice and comparable to a Pro Bowler, and the team is winning no matter what. Like that. Winning solves everything, and he's winning.
Mm-hmm. Dudes, at that point, they could have gotten Stafford or Goff. Yeah, all right. Teams need to stop using wins as a mean of evaluating quarterbacks, because then Stafford leaves the Lions, wins a Super Bowl in his first season, not in Detroit. Like, Justin Herbert is a top talent at quarterback, but doesn't have the wins to support it yet. Watch, dude, the Chargers, I think, are going to be better next year. I think Herbert will eventually be, there's always that if factor for Herbert, but yeah. Frank says they paid almost double for Dak. Yeah, that's going to be a double time getting back to the NFC Championship game. Frank says Croc Turdy could get beaten to a powder before his existing contract expires. That would be horrible. I don't wish that for Brock, but man, wouldn't that be an awful story? Like an awful NFL story? Like every single 49er quarterback, their career ends with tragedy, like ever since Steve Young. I don't know about Jeff Garcia, how his career ended, but Alex Smith almost lost his leg. Kaepernick got blackballed by the NFL. Jimmy Garoppolo died of syphilis. No, just kidding. He didn't. Jimmy Garoppolo, I mean, he's handsome and not a good quarterback. I guess that's the...
He got sent to Josh McDaniels.
Yeah, but now he's with Sean McVay, and he was smiling on the sideline beating his former team. He contributed a lot, from the sideline. But yeah, Trey Lance,
another one.
Huge, career tragedy. Yeah, man. Whoever the 49ers touch at quarterback, they die.
That was an interesting thing.
Metaphorically.
Coming out of the Rams and Niners game was, I don't know if you saw this, but apparently the Jimmy Garoppolo's brother posted something on Instagram. It was a picture of Shanahan, and it was like, I thought he was a offensive mastermind or something like that.
Offensive genius, offensive guru, something like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Just because Garoppolo's brother says that, like, that could just be a protective brother thing of like, fuck that guy, he got rid of my brother. But it could also mean that Jimmy's been thinking like, yeah, this dude sucks about Shanahan.
No, we know Jimmy Garoppolo feels that way. When he played the Broncos, in 2022, Lance's first year as the starter. So Lance got hurt against Seattle, and then Garoppolo came in and then won the game.
That's right.
Yeah, so that was week 2, that Lance got hurt. And, Garoppolo came in and like they asked, did you feel rusty at all? And he's like, no, it's like riding a bike. And then like the next week they played against Denver, and then Jimmy Garoppolo threw the pick 8. And like literally, I want to say it was after that play. After that play, there's like a freaking slow-mo of Garoppolo, like walking off the field, and he's taking his helmet off. And he's like, your plays fucking suck, man.
Damn.
You could read his lips, and he goes, your plays fucking suck, man. and then they asked him about it in like the post-game press conference, and then he's like, yeah, sometimes on the field I just say some shit. He's like, yeah. He's like, I don't think he confirmed nor denied it. He's like, I probably said something. I don't know, like just kind of blowing it off. Lecky says, what's up? Since Lecky's here, it's time to turn on the Raiders section of the show. The Raiders lost to the Falcons, thankfully. It seemed like it was a pretty close game. I was not able to catch this game, Mike. I got really busy today, but I want you to tell me about it. It was 15-9. It was a very low scoring game, just like the game that we talked about earlier. Tell me about it.
Yeah. I mean, first I'll start with the fact that this was a close game. It didn't feel like it, even though it was a low scoring game, because the Falcons were, for the most part, in the second half, at the very least, up by 2 possessions. They were up 12-6 for most of the game. Or no, 12-3. They were up 12-3 for most of this game. And I was like, we're good. Like, the Falcons will score again, and this will be over. And in the fourth quarter, I think with like, say, 7-ish minutes left, the Falcons attempted a field goal, and Younghoe Koo missed it. And again, it was, well, at that time, again, at that time, it was 15-3. Then the Raiders go down, and they score a touchdown to Amir Abdullah. And that makes it 9-15, and they got their extra point blocked, which didn't matter because they're already down 6. If anything, actually, they should have gone for 2 mathematically, because if the Falcons went and got a field goal, they'd still be down 8 at that point. But Antonio Pierce didn't do that. I never thought of that until just now. My math could be off. But anyways, then the Falcons get the ball, and which was the story all game, Kirk Cousins just couldn't do shit. Like, Kirk Cousins looks like he's just wrap it up. He's done. This dude is cooked. He is, I'm forgetting the word. Cooked is the closest I can get to it, but what's the word?
He's washed.
Washed. Yes. He is fucking washed. Maybe it was just Monday Night Football, Kirk Cousins, but dude, he looks bad. Like, it honestly felt like they didn't want to pass the ball. Like, they were trying not to pass the ball in this game because he's so fucking bad.
Is it okay? So my take on Kirk Cousins this year is that the Achilles has really hindered his ability to plant, and really like have zip on the ball. Did you see that tonight out of Kirk as well?
I didn't notice that. What I did notice, there was one play where, there were a couple plays where they got pressure on him and they sacked him. But there was one play in specific where I was listening to Dan Orlovsky, doing the play-by-play with Louis Riddick and the other guy who I don't know his name. And Orlovsky mentioned that in, like, the weekly meetings with the team and stuff for the media, they were asking Kirk Cousins about, when you're under pressure, and you might have an opportunity to scramble, but you don't. And then maybe they didn't say this to his face, but like, that's usually the moments where he gets picked off, is because he freaks out, he's under pressure, and he just fucking throws the ball and he gets picked. Whereas there was a play in this game where he got pressured and he actually scrambled. And Dan Orlovsky said that was the second time all season that he's done that. Whereas usually he freaks out and he throws the ball and he gets picked. And I was like, there you go. So, their point was like, he's made it a purpose to actually scramble. Maybe his Achilles is getting a little better, but maybe it's a mental thing where because of his Achilles, he's like, no, I'm not running. I'm not breaking that thing again. I saw what happened to Dre Greenlaw. I don't know. But it just seems like he's a guy who, maybe because of the Achilles, when he gets pressured, it's, oh, fuck, got to throw it now. And there was even a play. Yeah, there was a play earlier in the game where Spillane and Divine Diablo like just rushed him, just hit the gaps, and Spillane got picked up by the running back, but Diablo was coming in hot. Nobody blocked him, just full speed linebacker right at him. And Kirk Cousins sees him and just like almost dove backwards as he's getting hit and barely got the pass off. And like, it went like maybe a foot behind the running back. But I was like, dude, that was milliseconds away from being a forced fumble. And he just decided to throw the ball. Like, just fuck it, throw it. I don't know. But the point there is just Kirk Cousins. He doesn't look like their Kirk Cousins that played for the Vikings, And I think, again, the Achilles could very much be a part of that. It could also be coaching, similar. I mean, in the same breath of like Sam Darnold playing good for the Vikings right now. I just think a lot is to be said about Kevin O'Connell right now. But obviously we're talking about Raiders versus Falcons. So, I just wanted to make a point about Kirk Cousins not looking good in this game. But to finish out the end of this game, Kirk Cousins had a third down, and he got rushed by Robert Spillane, and Spillane jumps as Kirk Cousins passed the ball, and Cousins threw it. It got deflected. I don't know if it was Spillane or just a bad throw, like an errant pass. And when Spillane came down from the jump, he hit Cousins like this,
15-yard penalty.
15-yard penalty, third down. Incomplete pass, but then roughing the passer. He didn't like try to hit him. It's just because he jumped while sprinting at him, naturally his body, unstoppable force into him, right?
I'm gonna look for the play so I can see it myself.
Yeah, it as a person who wants the first overall pick, I loved it. But if I were taking this game seriously, I would have been extremely pissed off because I don't think that's a proper penalty.
All right. It's not the worst roughing the passer that I've seen this year.
Yeah, I mean, there are worse. Like, he hit him. It's just they made it seem like he hit him on the head, but like his arm kind of hit his shoulder, not his head.
What might have drawn the penalty was the little bit of helmet-to-helmet contact,
right.
Which is inevitable because, I mean, the helmets are just in the way because they're so big. But
it was just annoying to me because he already had jumped and like he was trying to make a play at the ball, not at Kirk Cousins,
Mm-hmm.
But it's whatever. Like it worked out for me. So, but they get the first down and then, next three plays, Raiders force a fourth down finally. And I think the Falcons punted. So Ritter got the ball at like the 10-yard line. And this was another interesting fact that Dan Orlovsky said in this game was, I think early on in this game, I don't know if this is true. And I wish I paid more attention to how he said it because I don't know the exact stat or like the yard line marker of this stat. But I want to say what he said was if the Raiders get the ball behind the 25-yard line this season, they do not score touchdowns. Like they have not scored a touchdown longer than 75 yards on a drive. And I was like, that checks out. That makes sense because their offense is that bad. And Desmond Ridder almost did it. On the final drive of the game, down 6 points, he got them down with no timeouts. He got them to about maybe the 35-yard line on the Falcon side of the ball or the field. And he had 10 seconds left after getting them to whatever yard marker that was. And they got 2 plays off. And as they got there with 10 seconds and he spiked it, I was like, you got 2 plays. The first one, I thought he ran out the clock. I was like, oh my God. It wasn't even a Hail Mary, really. But he barely missed the receiver, and obviously there were defenders in the back of the end zone deflecting it and all that. And then the final play was a Hail Mary, and he threw it too far, and it got picked.
Damn. Jacoby Myers almost had that one, though.
The final one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if he had a chance to, like, fight for it a little better, he could have possibly taken it away from, I don't know if that was Simmons or somebody else, but, yeah. One thing I'll note about Desmond Ridder, just because he started in this game, he throws a beautiful spiral, but half the time it's usually 5 yards above his receiver's fucking hands. So, he's actually very athletic. Like, watching him play, he's got wheels. Like, he can run. It's just he's not that good at playing quarterback. He looked solid on the final drive, but his decision making isn't quite there. Like similar to what I was saying about Kirk Cousins, like, there were times where he would freak out in the pocket and he would errantly throw a pass right as he's getting hit. A lot of dump offs to the running backs, which is fine. Like, it was working, I guess, but so that was the end of the game. Like, they came up just short, thank God. But I'd say the other things to mention on the topic of Desmond Ridder, one thing that the play call, announcers noticed, Lewis Riddick and Dan Orlovsky, and even myself, and even like Raider insiders on Twitter, like Vic Tafer, were tweeting about it. Like, why in the hell are the Raiders playing every single play out of shotgun? Like, there was not one snap under center. I don't know if it's because that's just how they prepped Desmond Ridder. I mean, it has to be a Desmond Ridder thing.
I think the game plan this week probably had to do with this. O'Connell was questionable for the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
So O'Connell could have played, possibly. And this isn't the reason. This is my thinking. If O'Connell would have suited up to play, is he still experiencing pain from that thumb injury?
Well, I don't know about thumb, but knee for sure.
Yeah.
Basically, I mean, my assumption would be it just gives the quarterback more room to work the pocket and more ability to view the pocket. So, I mean, if O'Connell had played, maybe they do the same thing. I mean, my assumption will be O'Connell will start next week, so we'll see if they play every single snap out of the shotgun. But I kind of doubt it. I feel like it was a Desmond Ridder thing.
You know what suffers when you go out of shotgun so much? Or what typically suffers?
I'll give you one good one, but go ahead.
The rushing attack.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Sincere McCormick got hurt in this game. It looked like a pretty painful...
That's what
it looked like a painful ankle injury. And then on the first drive, which actually looked like solid, Alexander Mattison got rocked and he fumbled the ball and the Falcons recovered it. But the thing that comes in hand with that, playing out a shotgun was the fact that on at least 3 plays in this game, not on the same drives, 2 were on the same one, and then 1 was on like the following drive or 2 drives later, the Raiders were in shotgun in their own end zone. Like, they were on the 1 or 2 yard line, and the fucking quarterback and running back were lined up in the end zone out of shotgun. That's when the announcers were like, why are we not under center right now? Like, this should be like, get the hell out of the end zone. Like, if there's actually, just thinking about it right now, if there's ever been a moment this season that looked like clear tanking, that would be it. Because that's stupid. Because they got a safety. The Falcons got a safety on us because we were running out of the shotgun in the end zone. The first play, Alexander Mattison actually got tackled for a loss. So it was like they were on the 2 yard line. He got tackled at the 1. The very next play, safety. What are you doing? And then 2 drives later, they did it again out of the opposite end zone. It's like, what are we doing?
Mm-hmm. You mentioning that Sincere McCormick got injured, that definitely it reassured me of one thing, or I guess clarified to me. Like, I was over here about to say, you know what? Every single time that Antonio Pierce says that a running back has earned more touches and looks very good, he's just a fucking liar. Because I literally, because Antonio Pierce was before the game talking about how Sincere McCormick had really earned, a lot more touches, and then I just see Alexander Mattison was the leading running back. But I guess that makes sense. He got hurt. Ridder ended up being the leading rusher with 5 carries for 28 yards.
Yeah, and then actually Amir Abdullah ended up being the guy that had the most touches in this game from the running back position, if I had to guess. McCormick was starting the game hot. Maybe he ended out with the most touches, but, Amir Abdullah was very much at the end of this game the only guy getting touches really.
No, it was Abdullah because Abdullah had 3 carries and then had 7 receptions, and then the next closest, out of the running back position was Madison.
Oh, yeah.
7 carries, 2 catches.
Sorry, I got Madison and Abdullah mixed up right there. Yeah, no, Abdullah having 7 receptions checks out because he, especially on like the final drive and stuff, the final 2 drives. I was gonna say something. Well,
Brock Bowers wasn't involved.
Yeah, not much. I don't know if they were just covering him really well in this game or what, but second half of the game they just went away from him. Last negative was special teams. They got 3 kicks blocked in this game. They got an extra point. I think they had a field goal blocked. I could be wrong. It might have just been 2. Or they had 2 punts blocked, but at least 1 punt, and for sure the extra point at the end of the game, they got blocked. I don't know why. I want to say there was a third, which I don't know if I've ever seen that in a game. And then just some positives, 2 players. Tyree Wilson had 2 tackles for loss and a sack. He got the start opposite Caleb Chason, which we haven't mentioned this yet because we didn't know last week on the pod, but Max Crosby's out for the year because of an high ankle sprain that he's going to get surgery on tomorrow or something. So, or at least it was going to get looked at today or something. So we'll see more Tyree Wilson, which is kind of a positive, I guess, for his progression, I guess. Whatever. And then John Laulu, defensive tackle. He had a tackle for loss, a sack, and a pass defended, which was actually a really good play. I want to say it was the final third down that got the Raiders the ball back at the end of the game. Like, it was a really good play. And his sack was a great play. He looked like a guy that is worth seeing the field a little bit more, but we'll see. I want to say he was the guy that the Raiders picked up or something off the Colts practice squad. I could be wrong. But that's really it for the game. Other than the Falcons, their stars looked good. Bijan looked good. Drake London had a good touchdown. But Kirk Cousins, he doesn't make me confident in their offense. Like the Falcons are a team that are in the playoff hunt, and they're playing the 2-11, now 2-12 Raiders, and they could barely clawed their way out of this game alive.
Yeah.
Like that just is perplexing to me, and that just screams they need to make a change at quarterback at some point, and it's probably because of the way that they've done it, it won't be this year, but I think next season, Kirk Cousins should not be their starter. It should be Michael Penix Jr. Yeah.
Now they look smart for drafting Penix, but you know what? Going back to the whole quarterback market thing, they look stupid for giving Cousins that massive contract.
Well, I'm still curious. I kind of forget, but I'm curious what his guarantees are. But I did see a tweet from somebody.
I have the guarantees here.
Yeah, go ahead and pull it up. I did see a tweet from somebody that was like, that Michael Penix draft pick might fucking save them when they have like the 15th overall pick this year. I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
On the left is the total guaranteed. On the right is the fully guaranteed.
And total value is 180. So his second year at least is probably fully guaranteed. Yeah, that's rough. I mean, they could keep him, but that's a costly backup, that's for sure. So, yeah, I don't know. But nobody's going to be trading for him, that's for sure.
Yeah, but you know what? It's just the market for quarterbacks. It's just the market. You got to pay quarterbacks that much if you want them.
Yeah. Well, and if the Falcons wanted to
win, it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do, Mike. I mean, they cost so much, so you just have to get them.
Yeah. I mean, again, coaching matters, but, if the Falcons wanted to make the playoffs, which they very much still have a chance to do, they needed to have the right quarterback in there, and forcing Michael Penix out there probably isn't the wisest thing to do. And also, they weren't guaranteed outside, leaving free agency. They weren't guaranteed that they were going to get Michael Penix in the draft, So they needed to do something at quarterback. They had to hedge their bet, so they had to get a quarterback. And being that, I'm sure that regime is like, hey, we got to go out swinging. We got to win games somehow. They have to get a quarterback. And statistically, with the Vikings, Kirk Cousins looked great, but I wonder if a lot of that, in hindsight, is a guy named Kevin O'Connell.
Yeah, think about this. All right, so Kevin O'Connell last season had a guy named Kirk Cousins as his quarterback. Obviously Cousins got the Achilles injury, but they weren't going anywhere. Cousins has been playing for Minnesota for the past couple of years. Before that, it was Case Keenum, right? Kevin O'Connell was still the head coach, right? With Case Keenum as quarterback.
I don't think so.
Let me double check that. Kevin O'Connell.
I think it was Mike Zimmer.
Did Kevin O'Connell become head coach of the Vikings? February 2022. Who was the coach of? You think it was Mike Zimmer?
Yeah, because that was the Miracle in Minneapolis or whatever.
Yeah,
you can search up whatever year that game was.
I think it was probably like 2019 or 2018. It was Stephon Diggs, so that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So definitely. So disregard the whole Case Keenum thing that I was about to say for Kevin O'Connell, but right now my point still holds true with they had Kirk Cousins for the past several years, didn't go anywhere. He gets that top quarter, that top salary, and they don't even miss him because Sam Darnold is playing well, and they drafted JJ McCarthy. They literally traded up for a quarterback, so they don't even have to pay Sam Darnold if they don't want to.
Right. Yeah.
Also, both my AirPods just died at the same time right now. So
yeah. Just for clarification for the viewers here, I think your point.
1 second. I'll charge one at a time. I'll put them both in. I'll put my volume very low though.
Can you hear me right now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I think just for clarification for the viewers right there, like your point to like the Vikings not, missing Kirk Cousins is in line with you as a Niner fan thinking about whether or not to pay Brock Purdy.
Yep.
Right?
Cousins was a good Viking, and obviously the Achilles injury probably made it hard. Somebody else did end up paying Kirk Cousins, but he doesn't look like the Kirk Cousins of old, and you should always be trying to pay for what you're going to get rather than what somebody has already done.
Yeah. Honestly,
then you find yourself in the Niners situation where every single time they give out a contract to a player, they always are worse than what they were before, except for George Kittle.
Yeah. There's a whole conversation I could have about the Niners cap space relative to their star players aging out and stuff. Like, I don't know how much longer Kittle, McCaffrey, Trent Williams, Fred Warner's going to stay. Nick Bosa is going to stay. Ayuk's staying. But, pretty much everybody else, for the most part, you can get rid of their contracts probably within 2 years and kind of start anew surrounding your core players. And then it's just a matter of, do you view Purdy as a core player? You could, and you're going to pay a lot of money for that, or you could take a short-term route with him and really try to get the next quarterback for this team, similar to the Vikings. Or, they did it really fast, but the Falcons, in the sense of like they signed a quarterback and they drafted a quarterback the same year. Most teams don't do that. That's why a lot of people were like, that was weird. That doesn't make sense to pay Kirk Cousins all that money and you draft the guy the same year. Like you're taking off years from Michael Penix's career essentially, but the same could have been said about Aaron Rodgers or Jordan Love, but look at how that worked out for those teams, right? I guess my main point is like it's smart to invest at quarterback, especially if you can invest the cheaper way, which is by drafting the quarterback, and trading 3 first-round picks to draft a quarterback isn't cheap, obviously. Unfortunately, this. But if the Niners decide to franchise tag Purdy, and then maybe the Niners get the 12th overall pick, and I mean, this year it doesn't sound like there's going to be a guy there that's worth drafting, but maybe a year from now, unfortunately, they don't do that good again. And maybe they're sitting with the 7th overall pick, and next year's draft class is a little bit more loaded with quarterbacks. You could draft a quarterback, franchise tag Purdy again if you don't sign him to a massive deal, and things might work out. And that's wiser than just giving him 5 years and then it doesn't work out with Purdy, And I guess my last point is just you guys had this window with Purdy of like, all right, he's got 4 years on his contract where he is dirt cheap. Like, if they really wanted, which this isn't wise, this isn't what a team would do. But if a team really wanted, they could just be like, well, we can cut our losses and be like, well, thanks for your services. Get out of here. And he hits free agency and they let him walk and they get a big comp pick for him or something. But, because they, how would you say, they, not they mortgaged for this or whatever. What's the term for like financially prepping for something? They budgeted. So it's like, well, we knew this was coming. We knew that he was going to hit the end of his contract that is oh so sweet for us right now. And then he's going to ask for the big money. And we're going to say, go find that somewhere else. But you have to have a backup plan for that. That's the problem. And they're not doing that. So that's why they're going to pay him.
Mm-hmm. I think, all right, so we're going to get back to the Raiders in just a second here. Because I feel bad bleeding the 49ers into the Raiders section, but I think I'm not saying that they shouldn't extend Purdy, but have a good solid number. I don't think he should be, the highest paid player. I don't even think he should be top 3 or top 5 highest paid players. You could possibly argue top 5, but I think the 49ers should find a number that really makes sense for their team building going forward and stay firm to that number. Don't cave in like you've done of the other contract extensions. Because, all right, if things get nasty and Purdy's seeking, a trade, let him seek a trade and find out who's going to pay him that money. Because name me a team right now, Mike, who would pay Purdy that money besides the 49ers.
Take out the Giants and Raiders right now because of their draft spots. Man, you'd have to show me the top 10 draft picks right now.
Okay, so let's see. NFL draft order. Okay, so hey, the Raiders still have the top spot.
Right now, okay, the clear, obvious one for me is Tennessee. The next closest, if they can afford him, which I don't know if they can because their current quarterback contract, Cleveland. If Aaron Rodgers retires, the Jets. And of all those teams, that's probably it. Besides the Raiders and Giants.
But you think they would sign him to the massive, contract?
I think if they have the cap space too, and it's their only means of getting a quarterback worth starting in free agency, that's the thing with free agency is the fact that you're open to being signed by any other team, teams are financially competing against ghosts. The price is already high because they have to assume that somebody else's price is already high. You know, they don't even have to know what the going rate is. It's just, well, we better give them a good offer, or else we're going to get laughed out of that bidding. So if Purdy were to hit a market now, if it's a trade, if it's like, all right, the Niners are allowing him to seek a trade, he can negotiate a deal with multiple teams. I mean, that's what happened with Deshaun Watson, right? He ended up picking Cleveland because they gave him fully guaranteed, massive, highest paid quarterback in the league. That's why he said, yeah, I'm going to go to Cleveland. But I'm assuming he had a trade clause, or maybe it was just because if he didn't sign a deal, or that was it, was they couldn't trade him until he was willing to sign the deal, like verbally agreeing to it, right? But basically, Purdy would be able to negotiate it, and regardless, he would get what he wants, basically, because there are other teams competing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so Tennessee, Cleveland, Jets if Rodgers retires, those three teams. And I mean, if New Orleans wants to make a big change, I could see New Orleans, but I don't know. Their quarterback, they're interesting.
I don't think they would do it because they just made that mistake with Derek Carr.
Right. I mean, not as costly.
Like they just did that. They still have him there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chicago's not doing it. Jets, they should just keep Rodgers, Rodgers actually isn't playing that poorly. The entire team is.
Right.
Dude, if the Jets want Purdy at a high, like one of the highest paid players in the NFL, and they don't want Rodgers, dude, the Niners should trade for Rodgers and take on his contract, because Rodgers is only making $37 million per year. That's perfect.
But then you have him for 1 year and you have no answer at quarterback.
Okay, and then guess what? You find the next quarterback. What I want to do is, hey, Purdy for 1 more year and then franchise tag him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but at least with Purdy for 1 more year and then franchising him for potentially 2 more years, so in essence 3 more years of Purdy. At least I'm assuming that's what you're saying, is 3 more years of Purdy, or at least 2, right? At least 2 more years of Purdy.
At least 1.
That gives you
at least 1.
At least 1, but I guess the main point with that is like, well, with Purdy, at least you know that you can win with him. With him and Shanahan, you can win. And that's not to say that with Rodgers you don't know that. Like, I think we know that you could win with Rodgers and Shanahan. The difference is with Purdy, you have 2 to 3 years to figure out the future. Do you want to keep him because he's young regardless, and you can re-sign him and you're good as long as he stays good? Or you can draft a quarterback in that 3-year span and have the quarterback of the future. Whereas with Rodgers, it's like suddenly you're speeding up the clock. Like your Super Bowl window is already like sped up to like, it kind of feels like it might be over. Might be. Whereas with Rodgers, it's like, all right, one last crack at it. Literally one last crack at it.
Well, they don't really have a choice now, do they, Mike? Like,
not this season.
Like, I don't know. Players like George Kittle, Rodgers might be the best bet that they have to win a Super Bowl with George Kittle. Because by the time the 49ers reload and retool the entire thing, with all right, because they won't have the cap space to spend once they pay Purdy.
Yeah.
They won't have the cap space to add to this team. They are going to have to draft and develop players.
Yeah, no, my vision dating back to when we started this podcast was they're going to sign Purdy, and they're going to let their aging contracts fizzle out, and they're going to rebuild the entire roster through the draft. And it's going to be it's going to look like a cheap team surrounding a couple of big tools in Purdy, Boza, Warner, and Ayuk. Because even McCaffrey's not going to last that long. And look at this season. He might not last at all, unfortunately. But last thing on this, if you can't get Aaron Rodgers, at least you can get Kirk Cousins, right, Kyle Shanahan?
I don't want to be here anymore. All right, let's get to some comments, and then we'll get back to Raider football. Hold on. Lecky says, I don't know what's worse, Ritter throwing hospital balls or AP over his mind, or AP over his mind. But man, I already know it's time to clean house.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, I would argue Tom Telesco should stay, but I agree. As far as the coaching staff and a lot of the roster on offense, yes.
Mm-hmm. Frank says, yeah, Grandpa Cousins kicked our ass on his way to the Elmer's glue factory. I don't quite get that one.
Maybe he's gonna. I don't even know if I could say that on YouTube, but glue.
Okay.
Just yeah.
It's bad when the receivers did get the ball all game.
Yeah, I mean, again, with McCormick getting hurt, it felt like they were trying to feed McCormick early, and then he got hurt, and it was just like, yeah. No.
Mm-hmm. Frank says 2 punts, 1 a partial, and a PAT towards the end got blocked.
Yep. So 2 punts. That's like what? That's crazy.
Oliver0704, thank you for checking out the channel, says, it really looks like the Raiders are tanking, but the Giants also want the first spot so badly. Yeah, we're going to talk about the implications that this upcoming game has.
Yeah, I'm just praying the Giants win at least one game moving forward. I'd have to look at the schedule again, but, I think when we looked at it last, I said it's possible, but.
Frank says, I don't want my team to ever tank, but I hope that they are, because they're a damn disgrace to the silver and black.
Yeah. I mean, again, like, honestly, if there was one game that felt like, yeah, they're tanking, it was this game until the final drive. Like, the final drive, it was like, guys, stop. But luckily they didn't have timeouts.
Frank asks, you think Rodgers and Pyle would get along?
Great question.
All right. I don't think so.
They do. Yeah, they feel like too big-headed, the two of them.
But, I mean, Shanahan and Brady would not have gotten along either, probably. And, I mean, that was the right move to make at the time. Like, Here's the thing is, maybe it's not a perfect match because Shanahan just wants a dummy that he can control, like a test dummy that will throw it exactly where he wants to and run the exact play and not change anything at the line of scrimmage. All right, this is another thing. Did you know that that Brock Purdy doesn't even call protections at the line of scrimmage? The center does that. Because they want to make it as easy for the quarterback as possible.
Yeah.
Who can actually see the linebacker? The center who's like this, or the quarterback that's looking at everybody.
Right.
Yeah. Why do you think they have so many free rushers that they have so many plays where there's an unblocked guy that just goes to Brock Purdy?
Yeah.
Maybe they should change something up. I don't know, but we'll see. But in terms of changing things up, do you see the first overall pick changing up this upcoming week, Mike? The Raiders are going to be playing the Jaguars in a game with All right, this unironically is the highest stakes Raider game that we have seen in a very long time.
Yeah, dating back a couple of years for sure. Well, I mean, last year there were some games where it was like they actually have a chance at the playoffs. Like the Colts game last year. I mean, well, what do you think? Let's go with you first.
Okay, so say what you want about how bad both these teams are. I actually think that the Jaguars are playing pretty good under Mac Jones a little bit. I
Yeah.
don't think that Mac Jones is playing that badly.
Mm.
Could you imagine if that's who the Niners end up getting? Is Mac Jones?
That's who they wanted all along.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not necessarily sure what's going on with Evan Engram. Is he injured?
I don't know.
He played 0% of the snaps, had 0 targets, 0 catches. It didn't show up like he was inactive, at least like when I saw it on Sleeper fantasy wise, but I don't know what's going on with that, but Brian Thomas Jr. is still playing very well. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a good matchup for the Raiders. Well, really a bad matchup if you want to lose, but a good matchup for the Raiders, like in terms of Jacoby Myers should be able to eat in this game, and Brock Bowers should be able to have a pretty decent game against the Jaguars. But I mean, the Raiders just still cannot run the football. They've struggled all year. They're like, the Raiders are historically bad with the run, dude. I don't remember a team in recent memory that was this bad at running the football. Like, I've seen teams refuse to run the ball, but the Raiders are trying and they just can't.
Yeah.
They just cannot. So, I don't know. Like, I really think that they are interested in the first overall pick. And I really, all right, Lorenzo sent that thing in the group chat, and I don't know how real it is about Antonio Pierce like being at like a club at 2:30. It could just be fake. It could just be fake.
Yeah, I'd say we should probably treat it like that until it's proven otherwise, but it's
probably
funny
fake.
Regardless. Yeah.
But I mean, if something like that, like the fact that I kind of believe that, or the fact that I could believe it for a second, that's just how poorly the Raiders are playing,
Right. Yeah.
The fact that like for a second I'm like, oh man, this guy doesn't even take it seriously. Like, I apologize to Antonio Pierce if that thing that's like spreading around the internet is just a joke, or like it's not true. So I apologize on my part, but there's no way for me to know for sure. Like, I'm trying to predict who's going to lose this game. Really, it's not a matter of who's going to win this game. It's who's going to lose it. I think that I am going to pick the Jaguars to win it.
Let's go. Oh man, I hope you're right because I'm picking the Raiders.
Ooh.
Yeah. And the reason why is because even though Max Crosby's out, the Raiders defense didn't look bad today against the Falcons, a team who's fighting to make the playoffs, and yet the Raiders with Desmond Ridder playing out of the shotgun the entire game, getting a safety and getting a punt blocked, two punts blocked, and an extra point. The Raiders almost beat the Falcons on the final drive of the game, a team that should offensively be doing better. And defensively actually did do pretty good against the Raiders. Whereas the Jaguars are just not playing that good. And, they barely etched out a win against the Titans a week or two ago, 6-3 or something like that. That's the only way I can see the Jaguars beating the Raiders is just the Raiders can't score, the Jags can't score, and the Jags just barely score enough more because they have a little bit more talent on offense, like Brian Thomas Jr. And I don't know if ETN's playing or not. That's a big question for me.
He is. I mean, he was playing this past week.
Okay, so I mean that's good. Like at least hopefully they can run the ball, and hopefully Mac Jones can play good, and hopefully I'm wrong. It's just my thought is if the Raiders can almost beat the Falcons with Desmond Ridder, I kind of expect Aiden O'Connell to lead the Raiders to a win against the Jaguars.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately.
Well, I just think about it like this. All right, so Mac Jones threw for nearly 300 yards against a good secondary with the Jets. Like, say what you want about the entire Jets team, their secondary is respectable, right?
Yeah.
I'd say they're a better secondary than the Raiders. That's what led Mac Jones to throw 2 interceptions. Have the Raiders really been a team that has been able to create turnovers, Mike? Because the Jets are.
Yeah, not very much. So
I mean, the Raiders can't run the ball. At least the Jaguars, their running backs combined for 100 yards. Or just over 100. Brian Thomas Jr. is just he's a monster. He had 10 catches, 105 yards, 2 touchdowns. I could use a guy like that on my fantasy team.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have no clue what happened to he must have got hurt or something, or maybe was a healthy scratch. But Brenton Strange, 11 catches, 73 yards I guess in place of Evan Engram, So yeah, the Jaguars can at least put up points. I just don't think that the Raiders can really put up points. And I guess that could change if O'Connell plays.
Yeah, on everything that you've been saying, the more that you talk about this game, the more that I think that actually common sense kind of tells me, that maybe the Jaguars do win this game. I just think that I honestly haven't paid enough attention to the Jaguars defense, so I shouldn't say like, oh, the Raiders can score all over them or anything like that. Like the Raiders offense is, like you said, historically bad. And it feels like it, right? And Aiden O'Connell against the Buccaneers, he was making some stupid passes. Like it's very possible he goes out there and he sucks. It's just I don't know. I just think the Raiders defense actually doesn't look all that bad right now. And like they've been in almost every game,
Mm-hmm. Like to me, it's a toss up. It's a toss up in this one. It's not like I don't feel
it is for me.
super strongly one way or another. Like I can see the scenario where we're both win. I'm just my coin flip right now in my gut told me Jacksonville.
Yeah, and I think for me, maybe one other thing that puts me more towards the Raiders is that oh my God, the Jags haven't fired Doug Peterson, have they?
No, they want a high draft pick.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm thinking of the Saints, which we play the following week, who fired Dennis Allen. But what I was going to say there was, well, at least you have one coach who's still trying to fight for his job. But actually, you have 2 coaches here that are. Although both of them, I think, probably are already gone. The team just hasn't made the move yet. In, Pierce and Peterson.
Why can I see the Raiders winning out? I'm not picking them to win out.
No, they shouldn't beat the Chargers. I think the Chargers will be in a race with the Broncos, although they face them this week on Thursday. But the Chargers should be in a race for that 5th seed. I'm hoping that they play hard against us. But the Saints, yes, I agree. Like, depending on how this Jaguars game goes and the health of the Saints players, there's a solid likelihood that I'll pick the Raiders again next week, and this could just completely fuck our draft These next 2 weeks can fuck us so bad.
Well, you told me at the beginning of the season that the Raiders were going to split with the Chargers.
Well, I'm changing my mind.
That would
I was
be
a little
the
bit more
best.
confident before the season started, okay?
Bro, you know what's funny is like I feel like Tyler would laugh regardless of the outcome. Like you would bah!
Oh, for sure. Yeah, they just fucked themselves out of a quarterback.
Especially if the Chargers just made the playoffs anyway.
Yeah. That would be
But-
like a reverse psychology way of getting us back for that week 18 overtime game against them a couple years ago with Derek Carr.
Mhm.
You know. But anyways,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm picking the Raiders, unfortunately. But I hope I'm wrong. God, I
Yeah.
hope I'm wrong. I hope you're right.
Frank feels the same way. He says Raiders got to win this one.
Well, we do not feel the same way. They do not need to win this game.
Yeah, the Raiders need to lose this game. You know, well, all right, here's the thing though. You know, in the race for the first overall pick, does it really matter? I mean, if the Raiders are really set on Shador Sanders, you know, which we don't know if they are, it could just be like, you know, one of those things where Shador is interested in going to the Raiders, but really it doesn't play out that way. But it seems like there's so many signs and everything. You know, Dion begging Antonio Pierce to draft his son. You know, it's stuff like that that makes me think Antonio Pierce might get a second chance at being the Raiders coach, but I just don't know. I think
I think for one thing, that Deion Sanders thing with Antonio Pierce, I want to say was before this season. I know that it just randomly dropped like a week or so ago. I could be wrong because Shador Sanders was in Vegas like around the same time as when that video dropped, but I don't know. I'd have to get that fact checked. I want to say somebody's mentioned like, yeah, that actually was like in the off season. Like more in line with like the fact that Antonio Pierce got hired. Like, you know, they were at something, Deion Sanders was there, and it was like, well, now that you're the coach, like you got to draft them Sanders boys, you know. It's whatever. And I also think if you did it right now, I don't know, it feels like collusion or something, or whatever you would call it, or tampering, you know. But
yeah,
I don't know. It's weird. It's all weird. I don't think any team right now is specifically dead set on any given player as a whole, like as an organization, as a scouting department. I don't think that's a thing. But I think Mark Davis or Tom Brady very much could be. But you know, it's not guaranteed that Tom Telesco is going to be the guy. It's not guaranteed that the scouting department is going to be the same. So for the Raiders as an organization to be dead set on, yeah, we want Shador Sanders, that doesn't make any sense to me right now. Like you have to go through the process and properly, you know, do your scouting. But you know, what they should be dead set on, if I were them as a franchise, is let's make sure we get our guy. And the only way to do that, for a fact, is to have the first overall pick.
So why can I see this, Mike? Why? All right. So I feel like, you know, with how interested it seems like Shador Sanders is with the Raiders, I could see a scenario where they just privately tell teams, you know, hey, you know, if you draft us, we're not interested. I mean, I guess if they are drafted to those teams, what is he going to do? Not play?
Right.
You know, so I could see a situation where the Raiders just get in trouble for tampering. Tell me why that's the most Raider thing. Like the NFL versus the Raider saga would just continue.
Yeah, I mean, I sure hope not. God, but
right?
No, I could see it for sure. I don't know. I don't think there's actually tampering going on. I think it's just the Sanders camp. I think what made them really want to come here are two things. For one thing, when Deion Sanders retired, apparently he wanted to be a Raider, but he never got the chance because I think he finished his career technically under contract with the Chargers, and they didn't let him leave the contract. Sort of similar to like a Barry Sanders sort of thing, I want to say. And he wanted to go to the Raiders, but the Chargers didn't let him off their contract, so he just retired. That doesn't matter now. I just always remember that and being like, damn, that would have been cool. But I think what really probably pushed the Sanders camp towards the Raiders, number one is Tom Brady. I think once the news came out, like Tom Brady's going to be a part owner of the Raiders, like around that time was probably when Brady was training Shedeur Sanders personally. But then also like this is probably me being a homer, like admittedly, but if I'm a prospect and like I'm a fan of the NFL and for all I know, maybe it would make sense if Shedeur grew up a Niner fan or a Cowboys fan or a Falcons fan because that's where his dad played, right? I don't know where they grew up, as far as what city, but whatever city that was, that that team would make the most sense. But if you want to look cool, and if there's a team in the NFL right now that it's like, well, what team do I want to like turn around? Like, what team would be awesome to play for? Like between the city and the stadium and the jersey and everything, like what fits me the most? Like, I feel like Shedeur Sanders would probably say the Raiders. Like, how cool would it be to turn around the Raiders? How cool would it be to turn around the Giants? How cool would it be to turn around any NFL team? Yes. But I don't know. I think the Tom Brady thing's big, and I also think that maybe, for whatever reason, they just want to be Raiders. I don't know.
Yeah, just make sure you zip it up when you're done.
I don't know. But it is clear, and it's interesting that the Sanders camp has made it, at least Shedeur has made it very clear. Chances are he wants to be a Raider. And I'm curious why, other than Tom Brady. Because the coaching staff, in theory, will change. So, something about the Raiders as an organization is making him want to go there. It's not the coaches right now. It's not like they have the greatest offensive mind ever at the helm. No. Right? Like that's what Deion Sanders has said in the past is the biggest thing to him is like, well, what'll make us want to go somewhere over another place is the development of the quarterback. That's the biggest thing. So the only thing about that, him saying that lines up with the Raiders is Tom Brady.
Well, you want to know what the Raiders have that the other teams don't have?
I don't know.
The income tax is a factor. The Raiders have Brock Bowers.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Giants have Malik Neighbors, but Brock Bowers has been better than Neighbors this season.
You can always find a speedy, shifty, really good number one receiver. It's hard to find a Brock Bowers. Technically speaking, I think Malik Neighbors is worth more than to an offense. But if you can have Brock Bowers and this is like this is far-fetched for a comparison, but then again, like look at how good of a season Brock Bowers is having. Like if you can get a Travis Kelce and a Tyreek Hill, that's way better than just having Malik Neighbors. Like the Raiders are halfway there.
I'm thinking about it from like this perspective too. It's like having Brock Bowers on the offense, like Shedeur Sanders being such a young quarterback, it's almost like assembling a college football all-star team, where Brock Bowers was just last year like the best, one of the best players in college football. And now he's in the NFL right now, and is one of the best tight ends in football. And like you said, it's, elite tight ends are pretty rare, So, I mean, I could see that as like a potential selling point of why they would, like Shador, you're going to make more of your money and you're going to have a great tight end to throw to, right? And then let's see. I would not be interested in Tennessee. I'm not interested in the Jets. I guess Devontae, but Shador isn't going at number 8. Like, and that's now. It can change, because the Jets are technically 2 games out of the first pick. But
yeah,
I don't know. Well, for all we know, he played NFL Street growing up and liked playing as the best team in that game.
Yep, it's possible.
Well, one of the best teams. I guess the Eagles were very good in that game too.
Yep.
The Eagles were, yeah. They had Troy Vincent and was it Brian Dawkins?
Yes, Brian Dawkins. They had Donovan McNabb.
They were missing a running back, dude.
I think the running back was Deuce Staley. I could be wrong though. And receiver, I think they had a receiver, but you would just play both their corners plus Dawkins and just have the Legion of Boom in the back. And then obviously the Falcons were always great with Mike Vick, but I don't know. I think Brady's a big part of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, possibly. That's probably it. I forgot to even mention that. But yeah, in terms of Raiders versus Jaguars, coin flip, I've got Jaguars winning. Mike has the Raiders winning. I want to quickly thank everybody for tuning in tonight. That's the end of our show. I want to thank Frank, Oliver, Lecky, Joel, my cousin Daniel. Even though I got severely depressed, I want to thank the Chief for checking out the channel, sharing his thoughts. I want to thank Jesus, and I want to thank Mike. I want to thank Mike for, being a champ. We're 64 episodes in. We're in our second season, of doing this podcast, and there's only 3 games left. And it doesn't seem like either of our team is going to get any bonus games, but I mean, I think we're still going to do the podcast throughout the playoffs, and then we might take a little bit of a break after that until like some news comes our way.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, during the playoffs, in theory, is when a theoretical coaching search would be happening. So, in theory, the Raiders should have some news happening during the playoffs, at least from what I would expect. My mind's all over the place. I'm just sitting here like, what if they are tanking, and what if this was the plan all along? I was even thinking of a what if scenario because I saw that Travis Hunter was like, you never know, maybe there's a good shot that Shador and I could be on the same team, and I was like, well, theoretically, no, because one of you should be the first pick, one of you should be the second pick, really, unless Shador Sanders tanks his draft stock. Why he would do that, I have no idea. And even if he did, that's no guarantee that some other team wouldn't draft him, like the Jets or somebody. But, like, just imagine, like, by the grace of the football gods to the Raiders tank. They get the first pick. Clearly, they're going to take Shador Sanders. No. They run the card up, and it's Travis Hunter, the best player in college football. And then you get to pick 3, and Shador Sanders is still on the board, and people are like, and then you get to pick 9, Shador Sanders is still on the board, and you're like, okay, what? And then Ian Rappaport's on the TV like, yeah, it's really strange, but, the word out is that none of the teams like Shador Sanders, but, like, he just tested really bad and blah, blah, blah. first pick of the second round, Shadur Sanders to the Las Vegas Raiders. It's not happening, but I can dream. So, yeah, no.
Yeah, have fun with that, Mike.
Yeah, I'm dreaming over here. The Raiders
The
are so bad.
2025
I'm just
NFL
daydreaming.
draft. The 2025 NFL draft written by Disney.
Yeah, literally. That's a draft day. Kevin Costner, made by Disney scenario.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, I could see it happening. Like, nobody thought Will Levis was going to slip to the second round, and he did.
Yeah, he was getting mocked as high as like 4th overall or some shit. So, yeah, but the problem is at this point, it feels like Shadur is the clear cut. I don't know about clear cut, but pretty close to clear cut number one quarterback in this class. The number one quarterback doesn't fall, Number 3, sure, but the number 1 QB, no.
What would Shador have to do in order to tank his draft stock? Like,
he'd have to go the cycle. He'd have to go for the cycle. He'd have to tank. Or he'd have to be a complete dick. So like either he tanks at the combine, or he's like, no, I'm not doing the combine. Pro day, doesn't do the pro day, but then when he does like in-person interviews with the teams, just fucks them off. Every single one of them.
Yeah,
The
like,
entire
Shador, what formation is this? And then like it's like clearly an I formation.
Yeah.
A T.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, at Colorado we call that a jumbo. Like Shador, have you ever heard the I formation? What?
Yeah, at Colorado, my daddy just said to throw it to whoever.
Yeah, he just said throw it to Travis.
We didn't run any plays.
Yeah.
It was street ball. I don't know. It's almost 1 a.m. I'm just, I want to thank Frank for his comment here. Frank's very generous. Says, "Thanks, gentlemen. Great show, great takes, great environment." And on that,
Thank you.
No, honestly, Frank, the reason why this is a great environment is for, from people like you, like Lecky, like Oliver, Fonzie, Joel, all you guys commenting in the show. It's like, I mean, this is just football takes, joke around, hang out, central, and that's kind of how we wanted it. Like Mike and I already, if we were not doing this podcast, we might be playing Rocket League right now and just talking about the same stuff. But now you guys get to listen to us talk, and we get to kind of like present it in a formal way, and a formally informal way. And, it's just cool. So it's, it's productive, and we appreciate like getting other people's perspectives, helps us, talk about more things. And yeah, I have fun doing the streams. So hope everybody has a great night, and, we'll catch you guys next week, and hopefully both of our teams can improve their draft stock.
Yeah, indeed.
All right, everyone. We'll catch you guys next time. Peace.